Pirates, get the telekinesis fruit at the start. Chapter 41. The continuous noise also attracted everyone in the villa. Anna and her 2 daughters also walked out of the room. Everyone watched the competition between the two. The guards and maids hid far away to avoid being affected. A brave maid asked the guards beside her curiously. "Who do you think is better?" The young guard pinched his chin and analyzed seriously. "Of course it's Sophia. Who can resist that kind of attack? Look, Master Kyle can't even fight back now. Wow, Sister Sophia is so powerful." The balcony on the 2nd floor. Anna also looked at the battle below in surprise. "Luli, Leah, who do you think is more powerful between the two?" Luli said without thinking. "That must be Kyle." "Oh, are you so confident in Kyle?" Anna said. "Of course." At this time, Leah's eyes turned and she looked at Anna and said, "Mom, they are fighting so fiercely, how about we make a bet?" Anna became interested. "Okay, what do you want to bet on, Leah?" Leah wanted to say that she would bet on a ship, just in time for them to go out to sea without a better ship. But in the end, she shook her head and looked at the hairpin on Anna's head that looked like a red maple leaf and said, "Let's bet on the hairpin on Mom's head, I also want the same one." "Okay, if Leah wins, Mom will give you the same one." "Mom, count me in, I also want the same hairpin." Luli also raised her hand to join the bet. "Okay, then add Luli." Anna smiled and touched the hair of her 2 daughters. At this time in the courtyard. After dozens of attacks, Sophia also gradually lost her strength, and sat on the ground as if she had lost her temper, saying, "Little Kyle, you are really a monster. My sister's attack can't hurt you at all. There is no need to test you next time. Just teach me domineering." She didn't understand that Kyle didn't attack because he was testing his strength. "Okay, you take a rest first." Kyle nodded. He was also very satisfied with Sophia's strength. Don't think it's easy for him to deal with it, that's just because he has a strong physique and domineering. He can be sure that in the East China Sea, as long as he doesn't meet those famous big guys, Sophia can easily deal with others. Even the Fishman Arlong or the Creek Pirates. Strong strength plus strong defense plus physical skills equals Kung Fu Panda. Haha, Kyle couldn't help laughing. On the balcony, Leah looked at Anna as if showing off. "Yeah, I won, Mom, Kyle is awesome." Anna was a little amused. "Kyle is indeed awesome, even Sophia can't beat him, but why are you so proud?" Leah looked at Kyle with stars in her eyes. "Hee hee, because I will become as awesome as him in the future." Luli also smiled at Kyle below. But when she turned around and saw Leah's happy look, she suddenly felt inexplicably lost. Anna was very keen to notice the change in her daughter's demeanor. She held her 2 daughters in her arms and smiled. "You won the bet this time, and Mom will give you the same hairpin in a while." After half an hour of rest, Sophia's condition also improved a lot, and she stood up slowly. In order to avoid damaging another set of clothes, she has not touched the beast form. "Kyle, I'm almost in good condition, please teach me how to be domineering next." Kyle exhaled a puff of smoke and stood up. "Next, you need to feel this power." He did not hesitate and threw a punch. The fist with armament hockey hit the belly with white fluff. Sophia groaned and took several steps back. "It hurts, come again." Kyle did not hesitate and started to attack again. He taught while fighting, and told all his feelings and experiences when using armament hockey. Sophia was not just defending, she would also attack at the right time. Learning is the fastest in battle. In this way, the two kept fighting. From time to time, Sophia's groan could be heard. The crowd watching nearby also began to feel bored and returned to their respective positions. Anna also took her 2 daughters back to the room. She planned to chat with the 2 girls alone. Time passed quickly, and it was night in the blink of an eye. At this time, Sophia was sitting at the dining table with a bruise all over her body, staring at Kyle opposite her with a resentful look. Kyle also felt embarrassed. Beating such a beautiful woman like this would make anyone feel. Call him a bastard. Ahem, Sister Sophia, don't look at me like that, but you told me to teach you with confidence. Sophia snorted. Humph, little brother Kyle is really cruel. That can't be helped. Kyle spread his hands. If you want to learn to be domineering, you either have good talent or you can take a beating. Luli and Leah are the same. They didn't deserve to be beaten at the beginning. Anna on the side was stunned. Did her two daughters also have such an experience? Keldon felt flustered when he found out that he had let the cat out of the bag. Ahem, you guys talk first. I'll go see how the food is prepared in the kitchen. He ran away immediately after saying that. Looking at the embarrassed Kyle, the four of them laughed. Anna looked at her two daughters distress-edly. It seems that you have suffered a lot. Luli smiled indifferently. It's okay, Mom, I feel fine. Besides, it was us who asked Kyle to teach us at the beginning. We don't blame him. Leah also agreed with her sister's statement. It's just a mere injury, but it's a warrior's medal. It's a pity that I'm so talented that Kyle doesn't even have a chance to beat me. Luli held back her laughter and didn't expose Leah's lie. In the past few years of training, Leah was the one who got beaten the most. Anna sighed. She hadn't said anything yet, but the two girls started to defend Kyle. Okay, I won't blame him. Besides, I know he's doing it for your good. We're all family. How can a mother blame her own child? Hee hee, Mom is the best. Leah hugged Anna's arm and acted like a spoiled child. Luli went to her room to get some healing medicine and gave it to Sophia. These medicines are very useful. After dinner, each of them prepared to rest. After washing up, the two sisters naturally walked into Kyle's room. Anna and Sophia outside stared blankly. After a while, they saw the two running out with red faces. Sister, why didn't you remind me? What if Mom finds out? Are you blaming me so much? I'm used to it and forgot that I'm at home now. As soon as they went out, they saw Anna and Sophia. Luli immediately looked like a child who had done something wrong, rubbing the corners of her clothes with her fingers, with a timid expression. Leah was much better, and she lied without hesitation. Aha, Mom, Sophia, you are here too. I just asked Kyle where he was going to play tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. Anna held her forehead. She is indeed her silly daughter. You should just say this. It was like a confession when she was guilty. You two should sleep with me tonight. Mom hasn't talked to you for a long time. Oh, Leah also knew that she was being silly again. The three chatted all night. But no one knew what they talked about. The next day, the two girls would look at Kyle with red faces from time to time. Kyle felt very uncomfortable being stared at, and couldn't help asking. But the two girls didn't say anything, which made Kyle confused. During the day, he still taught Sophia how to be domineering. In one night, with the plaster given by Luli, Sophia's injuries had almost healed. Chapter 42. Just like that, it kept repeating. If you get hurt, you take a rest for a night, and then you fight again the next day. This went on and on until the 7th day. The two of them punched together, and this time Sophia stood firmly in place. A familiar yet unfamiliar force also appeared on her fist. Familiar because she was beaten every day and experienced more. Unfamiliar because there was a kind of power in her body that she had never had before. Is this domineering? It feels so powerful. Kyle nodded with satisfaction. It's not easy, I finally learned domineering. Now you are only at the entry level, but it's already very good. Not only can you increase your strength, but you will also have an advantage when you meet a person with ability. Sophia saluted respectfully. Thank you, Kyle. It's okay. If you really want to thank me, please protect Aunt Anna. Sophia said affirmatively. I would do it even if you don't say it. She knew that Kyle couldn't stay at home forever, and the two ladies were the same. They have bigger dreams and are destined not to stay in this small village. Their future is on the sea. After teaching Sophia to be domineering, Kyle is also more relaxed and can be more assured of her and Anna. As long as you don't provoke those big guys, you can basically walk sideways in the East China Sea. Finally, I can have a good time for a while. On this day, the two sisters are playing in the water happily on the beach. Kyle looks at the beautiful scenery and then at the beauty. Life is so comfortable. But a good life is always accompanied by accidents. The originally quiet island has welcomed several uninvited guests. In the sea in the distance, two sailboats are speeding. The speed is very fast, and waves 4 or 5 meters high are stirred up behind the hull. There is a pattern of a hammer and a sniper rifle crossed on the canvas. There are several people standing on the deck of the leading ship, all holding telescopes to carefully observe the island that appears in sight. A small minion said to the young man at the bow, "Captain Felix, this island is Maple Leaf Island. There is a very wealthy caravan on it, but they are all very strong and we are no match for them." The young man smiled when he heard this. "You have prepared so many weapons. Don't you know how to use them? You still need me to do such a small thing." But, the small minion plucked up the courage and said, "The boss said that you can only rob money and not hurt people. If you use weapons, there is a high probability that people will be killed or injured." "Idiot," the young man cursed angrily. "If you can't kill people, can't you scare them? Go up and show your power. How many people do you think dare to resist? Why don't you use such a good weapon? You are waiting to give birth to a baby." The young man's tone became more and more excited. A group of small minions were scolded and dared not speak, and stood behind honestly. The young man calmed down a little and said, "Everyone, get ready. If there is no money coming in this time, everyone will starve to death." The two sailboats gradually approached the port. The fishermen and guards at the port also took action. They recognized the logo. A logo called Zunfang Organization. These guys have come several times, and each time they make some unreasonable demands. And their ships are too fast, and the guards on the island can't catch them at all. Lorden and Mark gathered at the port with a large group of people. As long as these guys make trouble again this time, they will definitely catch all of them. Kyle, Luli, and Leah stood behind the crowd. They saw the two extremely fast ships not long ago. Looking at the logo, they are not pirate ships. Just come to see what these people are. Kyle is also very interested in their ships. That speed is almost as fast as the speedboat in the previous life. The two ships soon approached the port. When there was still 50 meters away, the boat quickly turned its direction, and with a beautiful tail drift, it landed steadily 2 or 3 meters away from the port. "Awesome!" the two sisters exclaimed in surprise. Others were not as careless as them, holding various weapons in their hands and ready for battle. Lawton noticed that the equipment of this group of people had changed this time, and they all held various guns. The leader had also changed. Felix elegantly lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and had an intoxicated smile on his face. "It's really lively. Are you having a party?" Lawton stepped forward and said in a deep voice. "What are you doing here again? Is the lesson last time not enough?" "Ha, you should be the leader here, right?" Felix flicked the ash of his cigarette, shook his suit, and looked arrogant. "Don't get excited first, I'm very patient." Leah, who was hiding behind the crowd, whispered in their ears. "Kyle, Luli, do you think this guy is so arrogant? I feel like I want to beat him up." Kyle grabbed the restless little fist. "Don't be impatient, let's see first." There are also many people with bad tempers in the crowd. For example, Mark. Step forward and look down at the man. "Boy, I don't care where you come from. I advise you to leave quickly, there is no extra money here to give to beggars." Oh, what an unreasonable person. Even though he was ridiculed, Felix still looked like he deserved a beating. He waved to his men behind him. One of his men immediately handed him the gun. The members of the escort team raised their weapons instantly. Guns, long knives, iron rods. Everything. They looked at the man vigilantly. As long as he made any bad moves, they would take action at the first opportunity. Felix ignored the crowd and raised his gun to a 2 or 3 meter high stone not far away. "Everyone, how about I give you a show?" After saying that, he pulled the trigger. At that moment, a loud bang sounded, accompanied by the splashing of gravel. The 2 meter high stone disappeared, leaving only a large pit and gravel all over the ground. Gouda tilde. This scene shocked everyone, including Kyle and the other two. What kind of weapon is this? It actually has such power. The guards and villagers were all sweating on their foreheads at this time, holding their weapons tightly in their hands. They also have guns, but this kind of power is deceptive. And everyone in front of them has such a weapon in their hands, so can they resist it? Don't joke, the combat power of the two sides is simply incomparable. Felix saw that everyone looked like they were facing a great enemy, and smiled. This is the effect he wanted. It is best not to take action. He is also afraid that he will be wanted by the Navy because of this. "Everyone, how was the performance?" He threw the gun back to his men, clapped his hands and said with a smile. "It seems that everyone is very satisfied with this performance, so you have to give some performance fees. Not much, 100 million Baileys will be fine." Lorden also swallowed hard at this time. He was sure that he could not resist this kind of weapon, but he didn't know if Sophia could. But there are so many enemies, and Sophia alone can't do it. Is it really only money this time? But that was exchanged for everyone's lives. Pa 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 pa. At this time, only a few applause sounded. Good. I like this performance very much. Kyle walked out of the crowd with the two sisters. Chapter 43. Seeing the three people, Lorden slapped his forehead. He actually forgot about Kyle. He still remembered the godlike means of the past. What if the weapons of these people in front of him are strong? They are not much stronger than those pirates back then. Oh, Felix looked at the three people and became interested. Seeing such powerful weapons, he was not afraid, and he even clapped his hands and praised. Could it be that he really regarded him as an actor in a show? "Showy man, your weapon is very interesting, can you lend it to me to play with?" Kyle held a cigarette in his mouth and put his hands in his trouser pockets. Two beautiful women followed behind him. Looked very much like the eldest sons of those noble families. A question mark appeared on Felix's forehead. What did the showy man mean? But looking at the expression of the boy in front of him, he knew that it was not a good word. It seems that his deterrent power is still not enough. Let's see some blood today. Boy, you can play if you want, then see if you can catch it. He picked up a gun from the side and pointed it at Kyle. Prepare to teach him a profound lesson. Just at this moment, a sharp sword flashed. The gun in Felix's hand broke into 2 pieces. Not only that, there was also a cold touch on his neck. A long sword was already on his neck, with the tip of the sword against his throat. A female voice that was so cold that it made people shudder came out. "If you point the gun at Kyle again, it depends on whether your neck is harder or my sword is harder." Because the speed was too fast, everyone in the field hadn't seen what was going on before they saw that the arrogant man's face was full of fear. The cigarette in his hand also fell to the ground. The body began to tremble violently. What happened just now? Why did the gun in his hand break? What about the woman next to him and the long sword on her neck? The cold tip of the sword on his neck made him feel like he would die at any time. Felix's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and he said in a trembling voice. You don't mess around. It will kill people. I surrender." At this time, everyone reacted. Hiss. This is Miss Leah's move, so powerful. No one thought that the weak-looking Leah actually had such swordsmanship. Even Lorden was surprised, as he didn't even see how Leah made the move just now. It was too fast. At this time, the minions also reacted, and all raised their guns to Leah. A small leader trembled and raised his gun, with panic in his eyes. You let the captain go. If there is anything, we can discuss it together. You all hold weapons, but you don't look like you want to discuss it. As this voice came out, the guns in everyone's hands suddenly lost control and flew away from their owners to Kyle, who was not far away. Some of them held their weapons too tightly and were dragged for several meters, with their arms almost dislocated. It was as if a huge force had snatched their weapons away. You. The little leader who had just spoken looked at Kyle in horror. He stuttered at this time and couldn't say a word. He also realized that he had met an extraordinary person this time. This ability beyond the understanding of ordinary people. He had seen it more than once. Their boss had this ability, and he knew the horror of this ability better than anyone else. Kyle ignored him. He directly disassembled a gun in his hand to check. He had watched many videos of gun structures before, so he had a certain understanding. After a while of research, Kyle was surprised to find that it was actually an air gun. There was a long iron pipe at the bottom, which contained a large amount of compressed air. The bullet was a very heavy metal steel ball, the size of a fingernail, weighing about 4 or 5 pounds. The material of the whole gun is also very special. It looks like iron, but it is heavier than iron and has a higher density. Tisk! I didn't expect the air gun to have such power. He dropped the gun and walked slowly to the leader Felix, looking at him indifferently. The others didn't dare to move. The captain had been subdued and now he had no weapons. If he resisted, he would probably die. Felix's eyelids twitched. At this time, he was no longer as cool and indifferent as at the beginning. There was only fear in his eyes. The means just now must be the power of the devil. It must be. How can a normal person control objects remotely? Whether it is the black-haired woman next to him or the man in front of him, they are not what he can deal with. The best way now is to surrender. Whether he can survive depends on his mood. My lord, I surrender, and I am willing to pay money. So you are very rich. Kyle still remembers that this guy asked for 100 million performance fees right away. Tisk tisk tisk. This time, I caught a big fish. No, we only have 10 million Baileys now. By the way, we also have these weapons, which are all good stuff and worth a lot of money. Felix suddenly regretted mentioning the money. It was because he was short of money that he came out to rob. Why did he mention the money at all? Kyle went up and slapped him. Are you kidding me? You told me you don't have money when you ask for 100 million. And aren't you robbing? Where is the money you robbed before? Do you think I'm easy to bully because I'm kind? You're kind. Felix wanted to complain, but unfortunately he didn't have the courage. He felt very wronged. Really, I didn't lie to you. All our money was used to make these weapons. The 10 million was brought when we came out. Okay. Kyle no longer cared about the money. His main purpose now was to find out how the weapons used by these people were made, as well as the 2 ships. If his ship has that kind of speed in the future, then he can roam the sea freely. And this kind of weapon also needs to be made. Let's not talk about the money first. Tell me why your ship can travel so fast. And how are the weapons you use made, and have such great power? This. Felix hesitated suddenly. It would definitely not work to fool around. But he couldn't betray his own eldest brother. It didn't matter if he died, but if his eldest brother was implicated, he would be the sinner of the whole family. Sorry, I can't agree to this condition, even if you kill me. He fell silent after saying that. He was ready to die. You have guts. Kyle raised a thumbs up. He raised his fist and beat him up, with a little domineering in his fist. Everyone fell silent. The only sound in the port was the sound of fists hitting flesh and the man's screams. Felix wanted to hold back the pain. If he cried out in front of his men, where would his face be in the future? Unfortunately, he still underestimated his endurance. The screams almost spread across half of the island. But even so, Felix still gritted his teeth and said, You devil, even if you beat me to death, I will not betray my brother. Seeing that this guy still refused to let go at this point, Kyle kicked him away. Since he didn't say anything, he was too lazy to continue asking. Anyway, there were so many people, and he didn't believe that all of them were tough guys. The result was obvious. After being beaten, several people finally couldn't stand it and told everything. Kyle also got a general idea. These guys are all from the kingdom of Korkia. The man who made the ships and these weapons was called the boss by them, named Dean. His identity is a shipwright. And according to the description, he seems to be a person with special abilities. They don't know what his specific abilities are, but he looks very powerful. The ships built by this person not only have unmatched speeds, but also have strong defense. Even cannons cannot damage them. And they can also make various weapons, but these weapons will not be circulated, and only some of their own members use them. Kyle was instantly attracted. This is definitely a technical talent. Now I am worried that there is no better ship to go out to sea, and these guys are just in time. Chapter 44. He also learned something very interesting. This guy named Dean asked these people to rob. And they would write IOUs after robbing. At first, he thought they were joking with him. Who would write IOUs after robbing? Did they plan to pay back the money later? As a result, Kyle actually found a stack of unfilled IOUs on a small thug. Felix, who was lying on the ground, roared in grief and anger. He completely ignored his injuries. If he hadn't been held down by several members of the guard team, he would probably rush up and fight with the person who just revealed the news. You traitors, Brother Dean treats you so well, but now you betray him. The little thug lowered his head and dared not look directly into Felix's eyes. I'm sorry, Captain, it really hurts, I. Felix ignored him and shouted at Kyle. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. Since I am here to rob you, I don't care how you deal with me, I just hope you don't implicate innocent people. Kyle ignored his roar, stepped forward to help him up, brushed off the dust on his clothes, with a kind smile on his face. Oh, what's wrong with this brother? Why are you covered in dust? Felix was helped up by Kyle with a confused face. Then there was anger. Is this humiliating him? Don't you know what the dust on your body is? Seeing that he was about to get angry, Kyle quickly held him down, and the powerful force pressed Felix to the point of difficulty breathing. I heard your name is Felix. We are acquainted after fighting. From now on, I will call you Brother Felix. Pa, Brother Felix, I'll call you Xiaofei. Those were all misunderstandings. I hope you don't mind. Felix blushed. I don't understand why this person suddenly changed his attitude so much. And what does his name mean? It's not so insulting. What do you mean? Don't get excited. I don't mean any harm. Kyle patted his shoulder and said with a smile. Xiaofei, I'll be frank. I need a ship to go to sea. I hope you take me to see your boss. I want him to help me build a ship. Impossible, I will never take you, wait. Felix was about to refute when he opened his mouth, but suddenly he was stunned. Uncertain, you said you need a ship. Aren't you looking for trouble? Of course, he has no grudge against me, why should I go to trouble him? Kyle didn't understand what this person was thinking. Will you pay? Felix asked again. He was afraid that the man in front of him wanted them to pay out of their own pockets. After all, he had just offended him. Of course, who do you think I am? A robber. Felix wiped the blood from his nose, his face full of excitement. Sir, please let us help you build a ship. I can guarantee that there is no shipbuilder with better skills than Brother Dean in the entire East China Sea. Kyle looked at him with suspicion. You kid are bragging. If you really have the skills you said, you will go to sea to rob. And why have I never heard of any powerful shipbuilders in the kingdom of Korkia? He believed that these man-made ships were unique, but it was unreasonable to say that they were the strongest in the entire East China Sea. What is the most indispensable thing for going to sea? No need to think, it must be a ship. Especially since the beginning of the Great Pirate Era, many people have been scrambling to go to sea, and ships are the basic condition. The inferior ships cost hundreds of millions, and the better ones start at hundreds of millions. If these guys were really the strongest shipbuilders in the East China Sea, how could they have ended up like this? It was the first time he heard that shipbuilders made a living by robbing. How could I brag? I can swear on my life. Felix immediately refuted loudly. Everything else is fine. But he couldn't accept that Brother Dean was questioned. And he didn't want to miss this opportunity. They were short of money now, so they had to seize this opportunity. My lord, please rest assured. You can go and take a look first. If you are not satisfied, I will let you deal with it. Kyle thought about it and nodded in agreement. He said to Lorden on the side. Uncle Lorden, find someone to carry this guy down for treatment first, and find a place for the others to live first. These people are not vicious people, and Kyle is not a murderer. A simple lesson will be enough, and they still need to build ships. It would be bad if there was any enmity. Lorden agreed readily. These people were dealt with by Kyle and his team, and they had the final say on how to deal with them. He called a few people and took all these guys away. Go. Then Kyle went to the two ships to take a look. After a search, he had more than 10 guns and 10 million Baileys in his hands. Damn, I didn't expect you to be so poor. I don't know how you dare to ask for 100 million. Poochie, Kyle, why are you getting more and more obsessed with money recently? Haven't we saved a lot of money? Luli followed with his hands behind his back. Isn't this saving money to marry a wife? That little money is not enough. Kyle joked. Luli asked with her big eyes blinking, with a hint of expectation in her eyes. Who are you going to marry? It actually requires so much money. Let me think about it. Do I need to think about it? Kyle clapped his hands, as if he had finally made a decision. I've made up my mind. I want to marry the lovely Leah. Bah, you are dreaming, I won't marry you. Leah's little face flushed instantly, and she glared at Kyle fiercely. Kyle directly hugged her in his arms. That's not up to you. Oh, it's Leah. The light in Luli's eyes dimmed, she rubbed her nose, lowered her head, and looked a little at a loss. At this time, a big hand hugged her waist. Luli is unhappy. I haven't finished talking yet. I'm not unhappy, Luli subconsciously retorted, turning her face away. Then asked. By the way, what else do you have to say? Kyle laughed evilly and hugged her again. Marry the lovely Leah and the gentle Luli. I want both, neither of you can escape. How can I marry two? Luli's originally pouting mouth showed a faint smile, and her hands subconsciously hugged Kyle. You bad guy. Sister is right, Kyle is a bad guy, he only knows how to bully me and my sister. Okay, I'm a bad guy, then I'll do what a bad guy should do. After saying that, he hugged the two women and flew to the beach when he came. The three of them stayed on Maple Leaf Island for a month. Life was plain and fulfilling. As they were about to go out to sea, the two sisters were reluctant to leave their family and spent most of their time with Anna. It was unknown when they would meet again. Kyle practiced with Sophia every day, and both of them improved their physical skills. Chapter 45. The day before going out to sea. Anna called Kyle to the study alone, and the two sat opposite each other at the desk. Picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for Kyle. Thank you. Kyle quickly took it with both hands. Anna smiled gently and said, We are a family, no need to thank you. Then she rested her chin on her head and talked about the past. Time flies so fast. I still remember that you were lying alone on that small broken boat. Now you have grown up. Kyle sat aside and listened quietly. Anna said again. I have never asked you where you are from, where your home is, and why you practice so hard. Because I think these are not important. We are a family. I can see that you are a good child and very kind. 10 years ago, you saved the village and my daughter. 6 years ago, you saved me and Sophia, as well as everyone on the merchant ship. Now you teach Sophia every day, for our safety. I, as an elder, have not helped you in any way. Your kindness to us is far greater than our help to you." Kyle waved his hands quickly and said seriously, "Aunt Anna, you said we are a family. I also regard this place as my home and you as my most precious family. If it weren't for you, I might have died. This is a lifetime of kindness." Anna smiled, and her smile was very gentle and kind, as if she was looking at her own child. "Yes, we are a family. It would be awkward to talk about these things, so let's talk about something more casual. What do you think of Luli and Leah?" "Very good. I like them very much." Kyle spoke without thinking. His face was full of seriousness. "They have been together for 10 years, and they have been fighting and quarreling for 10 years, and all kinds of little things. They are all the best memories of his life." After standing up and bowing, he firmly promised, "Don't worry, Aunt Anna, as long as I am here, I will not let them suffer any grievances. Then I will hand them over to you, and I hope you can always be like this now." "I will." The two talked a lot more, mostly about Luli and Leah, and it can be seen that Anna loves her two daughters very much. Anna originally planned to prepare a boat for them, but was rejected by Kyle. The cost of the boat is very high, and Anna's family has money but not too much. After all, a large part of the money earned by each merchant ship going out to sea also belongs to the villagers. Anna no longer insisted, but took out 100 million Baileys, saying that they ate a lot, so it would be considered as travel expenses. Kyle insisted and had to accept it. Until late at night. Kyle returned to his room. The next morning, it was finally time to go out to sea. The three of them were still dressed as before, with a small bag and a long sword. When they left, they did not attract much attention, and only Anna and Sophia came to the port to see them off. The ship chose Felix's group's ship. Not only was it fast, but Kyle also had something to do and needed to go to their nest. As for the pirate ship that was robbed, it stayed at the port. Kyle and the other two stayed leisurely in the captain's room, while Felix took a group of men to drive the ship. At the bow steering wheel, Felix looked at the familiar ship and the sea under his feet. The expression of asking for a beating appeared on his face again. Although he did not rob money this time, it was an unexpected surprise to find a wealthy big customer. During the month, Loden did not treat them badly. They had no worries about food and drink, but they had no freedom, and their weapons were confiscated. They lived a comfortable life. "Lord Kyle, where is your target? Is it Korkia or?" Felix ran into the captain's room and asked respectfully. Now he has become Kyle's loyal follower. He must hold on to such a rich and powerful boss, and he will definitely get a lot of money when the ship is built. And people like this will definitely become famous in the East China Sea in the future. Then they can also become famous. Fame and fortune. Let's go to the port of the Kingdom of Oiko first. Our future little cook is still waiting. Kyle thought for a while and said. He looked at Luli and Leah on the side. What do you think? Okay. Neither of them had any objections. Anyway, just follow Kyle, and they also missed Chunye. Go to the Kingdom of Oiko, Xiaofei, work hard. Kyle patted his shoulder with encouragement. Boss Kyle, don't worry. Felix quickly assured, and then left the captain's room. Oiko Kingdom, a port town. In 5 years, the damaged streets and buildings have been rebuilt. The streets are bustling with people, vendors, and pedestrians. People seem to have forgotten the vicious pirates back then. In a remote street far from the downtown, there is a lively little restaurant. The diners are noisy. There are middle-aged people dressed well who taste the food with a look of enjoyment on their faces. There are also ordinary people in simple clothes holding bottles of wine, chatting and laughing with a few friends. Chunye, who is wearing an apron and a ponytail on her head, has now become a graceful girl. Sitting behind the cashier, with her hands supporting her chin, her eyes will look at the door from time to time, as if expecting new customers to enter the store. The diners have long been accustomed to it. Chunye, the young boss, often does this, staring blankly at the door, and I don't know what he is looking at. A diner teased. Young boss, do you have a sweetheart? You look at him like this all day long. Tell us his name and we will help you catch him. The companions at the same table immediately agreed. Yes, as long as the boss cooks us a dish. Chunyi waved his hand in disdain. No, if you guys keep talking nonsense, I will raise the price. The diners were not afraid at all. The food in the small restaurant was delicious and cheap, so they could accept the price increase. Unfortunately, Chunyi no longer cooks for some reason. I haven't eaten the dishes made by the boss for a long time. It's a pity. I remember that the dishes made by the boss are much better than those made by Eric. A middle-aged man who was paying at the cashier sighed with regret. Uncle, I'm going to tell my dad what you said. Chunyi took the money and joked. The middle-aged man immediately made a shushing gesture. Oh, I'm just kidding, boss, don't tell Eric. The body shuddered involuntarily. At this time, the doorbell of the small restaurant rang. 2 men and 2 women walked in. Chunyi also looked up, and then the whole person was stunned. The leading man was smiling, and there was a young and beautiful woman standing on each side. The familiar face, and the iconic long swords behind the 3 people. Chunyi walked out of the counter directly with his arms open. Brother Kyle, Sister Luli, Sister Leah. The people who came were Kyle and the other 2. The person following behind was Felix. In order to prevent those people from escaping, he was held hostage by Kyle. Of course, this was just Kyle's idea. Felix now wanted to follow behind at any time. Such a big fortune, if he ran away, he would have no place to cry. Chunyi, long time no see. The 2 sisters also opened their arms, and the 3 girls hugged each other tightly. 3 such beautiful girls hugged each other, and many diners were fascinated. I am also curious about who these people are. It seems that they are very familiar with the boss. Several people scratched their heads and thought carefully. They always felt that the name sounded familiar. At this time, Uncle Eric in the kitchen also heard the conversation outside. He came out with a spoon. It's Brother Kyle, you are here. Uncle Eric, long time no see. The 3 of them also greeted respectfully. Don't be polite, just treat this place as your own home. Eric said familiarly. Chunyi, why don't you go and pour tea for the guests? Okay. Chunyi immediately jumped and ran to prepare tea. Seeing that there were many people in the house, Kyle pulled the 3 women to find a place to sit down casually. The door was not a place to reminisce. Chunyi put a pot of tea in front of the few people. Chapter 46. Noticing Felix following behind, seeing that they came together, he should also be a friend of Brother Kyle and his friends. But still curiously asked. Brother Kyle, who is this? Just call him Xiaofei. Kyle waved his hand indifferently. Ah, Xiaofei. Hearing this, Chunye looked at Felix suspiciously. Such a grown man actually gave such a name. The look in his eyes when he looked at her was also weird. Felix gritted his teeth. He admitted that he was humiliated by Kyle. After all, he couldn't beat him, and he was a customer. But now, the stinky girl who came from nowhere dared to laugh at him. Did she really think he was made of mud? At this time, a bearded uncle who came to the store slammed the bottle of wine heavily on the table, his eyes full of excitement. Oh, I know who they are. No wonder the name is so familiar. Felix, who was furious, also attracted attention because of this shout. Others immediately asked curiously. Who is it? You kid, please tell me clearly. The man took a sip of tea and then said slowly, ahem. Do you still remember the pirate attack a few years ago? Hiss. I know. Many people understood instantly that as long as they were residents of the town, they remembered the incident vividly. Only those outsiders did not understand what these people were talking about. Including Felix. He also knew about the pirate attack in the kingdom of Oiko, but he was only 14 years old at that time, so he would not pay attention to the specific news, and it had nothing to do with him. At this time, he was eavesdropping with his ears erect, and he really wanted to know who the people who defeated him were. The middle-aged uncle looked at Kyle inquiringly, and seeing that he didn't care at all, he explained to others. This happened 5 years ago. At that time, there were dozens of pirate ships attacking here, and the number of pirates was countless, at least several thousand people. This group of pirates was extremely cruel. They killed people and robbed treasures. Just when everyone was powerless, a man stood up. He turned the tide, arrested all the pirate captains, and eliminated countless pirates. It was also because of him that the town was saved, and many people survived. And that person is Kyle, the young man in front of you, and the 2 girls next to him should be the 2 little girls who acted together at that time. After saying that, the big man took out a crumpled newspaper from his arms and showed it to everyone. It was the news about Kyle solving the pirates. Many people nodded in agreement, and they didn't know whether it was exaggerated. At that time, the newspaper did not mark the specific number of pirates. After all, the one who attacked was a 10-year-old boy, and the Navy played little role. The report affected the Navy's reputation among the masses. Various news began to circulate, and the accuracy of the news was difficult to guarantee. Many people who heard about this for the first time opened their mouths in surprise, and some found it hard to believe. Kyle looked very young, and he was probably not an adult 5 years ago. Dozens of pirate ships. Thousands of pirates. How strong a force would it take to fight against them? But the newspaper was right in front of them, and they couldn't help but believe it. Many people came forward to thank Kyle and offered to treat them to a meal. The caravan left in a hurry, and many townspeople didn't have the chance to thank them. Kyle couldn't stand this atmosphere and waved his hand to indicate that it was not necessary. Seeing a large group of people gathered around, Chunye immediately put her hands on her waist and shouted. "You guys, get out of here after you finish eating. Don't disturb me and my friends, and don't disturb other guests." She was full of aura, and she looked like a big sister. The diners who wanted to come over stopped immediately. "Mr. Chunye is too much." She said too much, but her body was honest. They all returned to their seats and didn't disturb the people who had reunited after a long time. Felix, who was sitting in the corner, kept shaking his hands holding the teacup, as if he had Parkinson's disease. What kind of monster did I provoke? He suddenly felt a little lucky that he didn't do anything too outrageous, otherwise he wouldn't have the chance to sit here now. Chunye covered her mouth with surprise in her eyes. Wow, Brother Kyle is so powerful. Were there so many pirates at that time? Leah scratched her head in confusion. Chunye asked curiously, "Sister Leah, weren't you there at the time?" "But I don't remember there were so many." Kyle waved his hand to interrupt them. "How could there be so many? I don't know where that uncle got the news. There were only a few pirates at the time. About 1,000 people, I can only take care of a few hundred at most." "That's great." Chunye didn't care whether it was 1,000 or a few thousand, anyway, it was a lot of people for her. Oops. Chunye suddenly slapped her forehead. "I was busy chatting with you. You must be hungry, and my cooking skills have improved a lot in the past few years. I will treat you to delicious food later." Okay. Leah was the first to raise her hand in agreement. She has been looking forward to the food here for a long time. Kyle and Luli had no objection. They also wanted to see how the chefs on the future ship cook now. After sailing on the sea for a long time, they were hungry. "Then you sit for a while." After saying that, Chunye ran into the kitchen. Not long after, the table was filled with various dishes. You could smell an alluring aroma from afar. Kyle picked up a piece of unknown meat with chopsticks and put it in his mouth, chewing it gently. The wonderful taste seemed to be made by countless exquisite processes. It was delicious. Kyle gave a thumbs up and praised generously. "Delicious. Haha, it seems that we will have a good time in the future." Seeing Kyle's exaggerated expression, Luli and Leah also began to taste it. Leah squinted her eyes happily, as if she had eaten a unique delicacy, and her face was full of enjoyment. Tilda, it's so delicious. Chunye, you are so great. Luli was almost the same, and also praised it. Hee, as long as you like it. Chunye scratched her head a little embarrassedly. She was very happy that her cooking skills were recognized by her friends. It took 2 hours to finish the meal. The plates piled up on the table almost covered their heads. Kyle and Leah patted their stomachs contentedly. Luli finished eating very early. She didn't eat much, just a little more than normal people. She helped Chunye with work in the later time, otherwise she would have collapsed from exhaustion with her strength. Chunye was already panting from exhaustion at this time. She reached out to wipe the sweat from her forehead. I had seen how much Kyle and Leah could eat before, but I didn't expect that their appetite had increased so much in the past few years. Do I really have the ability to be a chef on their ship? The girl couldn't help but doubt her own ability. Come on, Chunye-chan. Luli patted her shoulder. There are still many days to come. Chunye's defense was instantly broken. She almost collapsed from exhaustion after this meal alone, so how would she live in the future? She would not be the first chef to die of exhaustion. Woo, Sister Luli, can I regret it now? Luli shook her finger, no. Seeing that Chunye was about to cry, she said again. Don't worry, we can help you in the future. With those 2 guys here, you can't cook alone. After saying that, she pointed to Kyle and Leah who were almost eating like balls. And I want to learn cooking from you, too. Okay. Chunye immediately recovered with full health, and felt relieved with Luli's promise. Chapter 47. After the meal, they said hello to Eric and went to the town to play. Chunye is a local after all. She knows where to have fun and delicious food. Felix followed behind happily, carrying large and small bags of things in his hands, becoming a tool. They played until the afternoon and basically ran through the whole town. The 4 of them sat on a chair near the sea to rest. Chunye's physique can't be compared with others. After playing for so long, he felt a little tired. His little face was flushed, and his 2 little hands kept flapping beside his cheeks. I haven't had such a happy time playing for a long time. There are still many places on the island that I haven't been to. Let's go to other towns to play tomorrow. Leah licked the ice cream in her hand with her rosy little tongue, and took out a few and handed them to others. Chunye, your physical fitness is a little poor. You can't go on like this. Why don't you train with us in the future? Kyle said. He discovered it when he was in the restaurant. Of course, he didn't say that just to make Chunye cook more food. After all, there are too many dangers on the sea. In the future, he will probably fight with many people. He doesn't expect the crew to be too strong, but at least have the strength to survive in the aftermath of the battle. Don't let the other party's domineering color come down and all the crew will fall down. Well, okay. Chunye bit the ice cream and agreed vaguely. She also saw that she was the weakest among the 4. She didn't want to be protected all the time. She also wanted to protect everyone, and she also wanted to have the strength to help her father in the future. Leah looked at her and reminded. Training is very tiring. Chunye, are you sure? Of course. Chunye stood up and looked at the sea. I am your future chef. I will go to sea with you and face those powerful enemies. How can I be afraid? I don't want to hold you back. Then cheers to our future chefs. Leah seemed to be infected and shouted while holding up the ice cream. But we don't have wine or cups now, Chunye said with her head tilted. Then let's drink ice cream. Okay, let's drink ice cream together. Luli also raised the ice cream and shouted excitedly. Chunye said, Brother Kyle, you are the only one missing. Kyle turned his head aside and pretended not to hear. How could he do such a shameful thing when so many people on the road were watching? He is not a child. Finally, the 3 women looked at Kyle. Especially Leah, pouting her little mouth. It was she who proposed this matter. Kyle didn't come, which made her very unhappy. Seeing this, Kyle sighed and knew that he couldn't escape. Shame is shame. He walked forward, raised his ice cream, and shouted along until the sun set. After sending Chunye back to the restaurant, Kyle and his friends found a hotel to stay. Felix also booked a room. He bought a den mushi while traveling with the others. He had been away for more than a month, and had not contacted Brother Dean during that time. He reported his safety and told Kyle, the rich man, about this. Of course, this was done with Kyle's permission. All his money was confiscated, and the money for buying the den mushi was borrowed. The den mushi dialed. Felix immediately said, "Brother Dean, it's me." After saying that, the face of the den mushi suddenly became stunned, and the cigar at the corner of its mouth fell onto the table and turned into bubbles. "Felix, you're still alive, that's great." The man opposite seemed very excited. After calming down, he began to ask what had happened during this period. Felix also told him everything that happened after he went to Maple Leaf Island. He also told Kyle about his plan to build a ship. Dean on the other side also breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a terrifying enemy, but fortunately he survived. Soon his expression became serious again. "Felix, don't come back for the time being." Felix immediately asked, "What happened?" The den mushi spit out a puff of smoke that seemed real and fake before speaking. "We found an army from other seas. Judging from their posture, they should be heading for our country." Felix was surprised. "How is this possible, Brother Dean? Are you sure it's an army from other seas?" It's no wonder he was surprised. There are only 3 ways to come to the East China Sea from other seas. One is to cross the Red Earth continent. The second is to go back and forth to the Upside Down Mountain. The third is to enter the Grand Line and then cross the Calm Belt. No matter which way you go, you must have a strong foundation, force. But why would an army with such strength come to attack his country? What's the purpose? The kingdom of Kojia is just a small country. Whether its resources or population, it's impossible to attract such a powerful army. He just hoped that Brother Dean was wrong, otherwise Kojia might really be in big trouble this time. However, the answer he got was affirmative. "I'm sure they came from the direction of the Red Earth continent. The ships of these guys are big snails. You should understand what this means." What does it mean? How could Felix not understand that this army crossed the Red Earth continent with this snail-like ship? "Brother Dean, what's the situation now? Has this army started to attack?" "That's not the case yet. We have a team that happens to be near the Red Earth continent. According to intelligence, it will take about a day to arrive." Hearing this, Felix breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that they haven't arrived, which means there is still time. Go talk to Lord Kyle, he should be able to get back in time. The other party seemed to know what he was thinking, and his voice became stern. "I'm not telling you this to let you come back and die." "I know," Felix interrupted the other party and said loudly. "We are brothers. How can I let you fight alone? And, my name is Mitchell Felix, I also have the obligation to protect this country." With a click, Felix hung up the communicator directly. He had to go back. Brother Dean had always protected him since he was a child. Now that his brother was in danger, how could he cowardly hide outside? He packed his things and went out of the room again. Came to Kyle's room and rang the doorbell. Kyle, who was sleeping soundly, was awakened by the doorbell. He irritably lifted the quilt and took the 2 little hands off his body. He cursed. "Damn, which bastard is not sleeping in the middle of the night?" The doorbell also woke up Luli and Leah, who were sleeping soundly. Both of them rubbed their eyes and sat up. Leah directly spread her observation hockey. "Felix, what is this guy doing in the middle of the night? Ha tilde tilde, I guess he has something to do with Kyle." Luli yawned in a daze. "You guys continue to sleep, I'll go and see." Kyle cursed after opening the door. "You better have something urgent. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you know how hard my fist is. Felix also knew that his behavior was not very polite, but now he had no choice. He knelt on the ground with a plop and hit his head on the ground. I'm sorry, Lord Kyle, I'm sorry to disturb you so late at night, mainly because I have something very important to say. Kyle was shocked. What's wrong with this kid? Even if he was apologizing, he didn't have to kneel down. He helped him up. Just tell me what you want to say. I don't like people kneeling down to me. Master Kyle, let's go to the room and talk. Felix looked around and thought it was better not to let others know about this. Kyle had no objection and followed him into another room. Chapter 48. Inside the house, the two sat opposite each other at the table. You mean a group of guys driving snail boats or attacking the kingdom of Corgi? Kyle's voice rose 8 degrees. Seeing him so surprised, Felix asked. Master Kyle, do you know this army? Yes, of course I know it, Germa 66. Others don't know it, but how can Kyle not know it? This is a famous mercenary organization in this world. Felix scratched his head. Isn't this an organization in the comic story? He had read a comic series called Warrior of the Sea Sky, and the evil army in it was called Germa 66. It tells the story of the hero, Sky, who can walk on the sea, leading the dream-like combined robot and seagulls to fight against the evil army of Germa 66. The Navy also shaped its own image of strength and justice through the continuous failures of Germa 66. Is there the same thing in reality? It's not just a comic. Kyle shook his finger and said. This has a real prototype, Germa 66, which belongs to the Germa Kingdom, the absolute overlord of the North Sea underground world, has a powerful scientific combat force, and the entire country is built on hundreds of snail ships. As for the others, Kyle didn't say much, because he probably wouldn't understand it. Are they strong? Felix asked again. Well, how should I put it? Kyle thought for a while and said, for ordinary countries, this organization is their disaster. For example, the Oiko Kingdom where we are now, Germa 66 can easily destroy it. Felix collapsed in his chair after hearing this. Kyle had said it very directly, and he also understood the gap between the two sides. Kojia simply did not have the strength to compete. After a while, he came to his senses, and knelt on the ground again, begging. Please, Lord Kyle, save Brother Dean. Dean, is that the great shipbuilder you mentioned? Felix must have nodded. Let me think about it. Kyle didn't really want to care about this kind of thing. It was not too difficult to protect one person from the attack of Germa 66, or to repel them directly. At this time, Germa 66 should not have been as powerful as it was later, and its combat uniforms should not have been perfect enough. The key to the problem is that the Germa Kingdom is a member of the world government, and it has the right to attend the World Conference. If they make enemies this time, they will definitely be retaliated later. If they want to avoid retaliation, they have to kill all the attacking Germa. But if they really kill everyone, they will be charged with attacking a member of the world government. By the way, does your country have any good things? For example, some scarce resources, or a lot of money? Kyle asked in confusion. Lord Kyle, you are joking. If there were really good things, I wouldn't go out to sea to rob. Felix laughed awkwardly. He didn't want to belittle his country, but the fact was that. That's strange. Kyle remembered that it seemed that Germa would cross the Red Earth continent and march into the East China Sea in the past few years. But he never understood why these people went to such great lengths. A small country that is not a member of the world government, with no people, no money, and no resources. The resources obtained from the conquest are probably not enough to cover the military expenses for a round trip. And when I read the comics, Germa 66 did not occupy this country, which was equivalent to going to you with great effort and leaving. This is either a serious illness or a great hatred. If neither of the two is occupied, it is worth thinking about. Kyle tapped the table lightly with his index finger. He still didn't want to give up a good shipwright. If he helped the other party this time, it would be easier to get the other party on board or build a ship in the future. I'll help you with this. We'll set off tomorrow morning. Kelda, are you serious? Felix couldn't believe it. He didn't expect Kyle to actually agree. He didn't have much hope from the beginning. The two parties were not related, and he had offended the other party before. Later, after learning about the strength of Germa 66, he had completely given up the idea of asking for help, thinking of taking his men back to support alone. Really, you go and prepare first. After saying that, Kyle waved his hand to indicate that he could leave. Thank you, Lord Kyle, thank you, Lord Kyle. After thanking him, Felix respectfully left the room. Suddenly he was stunned at the door again. That's not right. Isn't this my room? Shaking his head and no longer thinking about it, he ran to the port. He still needed to tell a group of men about these things. Let them do it in advance. Prepare. After Felix left, Kyle supported his forehead and thought about how to deal with this matter. While solving the problem of Germa 66, he could not bring hatred to himself. It seems that I have to find an unlucky person to take the blame. After returning to the room, he found that the two sisters were sitting on the bed chatting. Seeing Kyle coming back, Leah asked, Kyle, are you planning to go to the Kingdom of Corgia? You know, Kyle was not surprised. With Leah's curious nature, how could she not eavesdrop? Luli asked worriedly. Kyle, I heard from you that Germa 66 seems to be very powerful. Will it be dangerous to go to Corgia? There is definitely danger, but I think Kyle should be able to deal with it. Leah was not so worried. She now has a blind admiration for Kyle. In her opinion, as long as Kyle wants to do something, there is nothing he can't do. Kyle, am I right? Indeed, Kyle did not deny that it was not difficult to deal with Germa 66 with his current strength. But he said, I plan to go with Xiaofei tomorrow. You stay here with Chunye. I will come back to pick you up after the matter is over. No. No. As soon as Kyle finished speaking, the two women immediately objected. Why leave us behind? We want to go together. Leah sat up and said angrily. Kyle sat down on the bed and pinched her little face. The enemy this time is different. It may be dangerous. Leah directly hugged Kyle's neck and sat in his arms. We are not afraid. Besides, we have a certain strength now and can help you. Luli also said, Kyle, we are partners and family. You can't just leave us alone when something happens. Shouldn't we face it together? Yes, bad guy, if you dare to leave us, I will be angry with you. After saying that, Leah showed her little tiger teeth viciously. Seeing the two people's firm attitude, Kyle had nothing to say and agreed immediately. Okay, call Chunye to join us tomorrow. We are all companions and should face it together. That's right, Leah smiled. She kissed Kyle on the face. Okay, you guys go to sleep first. I'll go out to prepare some things and come back in a while. Kyle picked up Leah and put her on the bed. He kissed them on the face again. Then he left the room. This time, the two women didn't follow him and got into the bed directly. Chapter 49. It was late at night, and most of the shops on the street had turned off the lights and closed. Walking slowly on the street, I finally stopped at the door of a clothing store. Dong dong dong. I knocked on the door with my fist, and soon the lights inside were turned on, and at the same time, there was a middle-aged woman cursing. After pushing the door open, I saw a handsome young man, whose temper had also eased a lot, and he said impatiently, Boy, what are you doing here in the middle of the night? Kyle didn't say much, and directly took out a stack of Baileys and threw it over. I want to buy some clothes. The female boss picked up the Baileys and saw that they were all 10,000 denominations, such a thick stack. At least hundreds of thousands. She immediately made way for the door and led Kyle in with a flattering smile. According to the pictures in her memory, she selected a few sets of similar clothes, and also chose a black robe with a hood that could cover her whole body. Finally, I was surprised to find that there were wigs for sale here, so I picked a long golden wig without thinking too much. After leaving the clothing store, Kyle went to the weapon store in the same way. He picked 2 swords that looked pretty good, a mask, and a steering wheel that the boss had just bought from somewhere. After buying things, Kyle returned to the hotel with satisfaction. He changed into the clothes he had just bought, and put on the golden wig. Looking at the dress in the mirror that was about 60% similar to his memory, Kyle smiled with satisfaction. Put on the hood and mask. Ha 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 ha, from now on, I am the Golden Lion Kyle. Leah showed a little expression of disgust. Hey tilde tilde, why is Kyle suddenly so stupid? Did he hit his head outside just now? Kyle poked her forehead unhappily. You just hit your head. Luli looked at his clothes and lowered her head in thought. I feel like I've seen Kyle dressed like this somewhere, but I forgot who it was. Sis, now that you mention it, I feel familiar with it. Kyle didn't explain to them. He dressed like this because of the specialness of his own abilities, so he chose the Golden Lion as the scapegoat. The Golden Lion's ability is to make objects float, and Kyle's ability is to control the movement of objects. It's considered an advanced version of the floating fruit. It shouldn't be difficult to imitate the ability of the floating fruit. As long as it doesn't directly move several small islands, the rest can basically be done. And now the Golden Lion Shiki is hiding in some unknown corner, studying his animal experiments and preparing to attack the East China Sea in the future. And few people know about this, and even fewer people know where the Golden Lion is hiding now. Then Kyle has no pressure to dress him up. I just don't know if the 2 swords I bought can fool people. After all, they are 2 famous swords, and anyone with a little eye should be able to recognize them. If it doesn't work, just cover it up. Vinsmoke Judge is not familiar with Golden Lion, so just fool around. After putting away all the things, Kyle went into bed. There were still a few hours before dawn, so he could sleep a little longer. The next day, the 3 of them came to the small restaurant of Chunya's house early. They also told him the news that they were about to set sail. Hey, brother Kyle, are we going to set sail so soon? Chunya was a little surprised. She wanted to accompany her father for a few days. But since everyone had decided, she didn't say anything. Kyle also knew that this trip was too hasty. He told them about their trip to Corgi, and also explained the dangers they would encounter. Kyle didn't hide the fact that the enemy was Germa 66, and told them all the details. Chunya was a companion, and Uncle Eric was suspected to be a member of the Revolutionary Army. There was no need to worry that they would tell on him. At the same time, he also wanted to ask Chunya's opinion. If the other party didn't want to go, Kyle wouldn't force it. Since everyone wants to go, I must go too. Chunya had no objection and was happy to go with everyone, and she now had good strength. She was not afraid of encountering any danger. Eric didn't say anything. He also knew about Germa 66, but he was more optimistic about Kyle and his friends. He believed that his daughter would not be in any danger if she followed them. After a simple breakfast, the 4 of them went to the port. Felix had already prepared everything. At this time, he was looking forward to it on the ship at the port. He was also worried about what would happen if Kyle didn't go. Fortunately, he saw 4 familiar figures appearing at the port soon. Including the owner of the restaurant yesterday. This person is also a devil fruit ability user, and he seems to be quite powerful. Then this trip will be safer. Felix he hurried forward to greet them attentively. Master Kyle, you are here. When shall we set off? Let's set off now. Kyle did not want to delay too much time. Germa 66 would not wait for him deliberately. After several people boarded the ship, Felix went to command his men to set sail. The ship was like an engine, sailing towards Kokia at a very fast speed. The 3 girls were whispering in the cabin. Kyle came to the deck. Xiaofei, How long does it take to go to Kokia? Felix took a sea chart and said without thinking. A normal ship takes 5 days, but our ship has been modified. It will only take 1 day to sail at the fastest speed. The kingdom of Kokia is near the Red Earth continent, close to the direction of the upside-down mountain. The kingdom of Oiko is close to the doldrums in the south. The distance between the two islands is still quite far. Felix didn't dare to delay at all, as Korkia was now in a life-and-death situation. He also dismantled the power system of another ship and installed it on this ship. The ship was not big to begin with, and now dozens of people on one ship seemed a bit crowded. However, he still vacated the cabin, and the others just stayed on the deck. The cabin was left for Kyle and the others to live in. A lot of food and other things were also prepared. On the other side, the kingdom of Korkia. The king had received the news that the country was about to be attacked a long time ago. At this time, intensive preparations were being made. All the combatants were summoned. The country had a small population, and all the troops together only had more than 5,000 people. The strength was also uneven. Some were only teenagers in their teens, and some were already middle-aged and elderly people over 50 years old. No one complained about the king's summons. They believed that this time the king would be able to lead everyone to defeat the invading enemy as before. On the large square in front of the palace, a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s walked slowly toward the platform. He was wearing a very plain shirt and had a cross-shaped rapier on his waist. Michel Andra. He is the king of this country, a person regarded as a belief by all citizens. There was also a teenager beside him. He was about 17 or 18 years old, about 2 meters tall, and had a sledgehammer on his back. Those who didn't know would think that this man was the king's personal guard, but only the civilians below knew. He is the prince of this country. Michel Dean. Everyone below stared at the middle-aged man in the center of the square with burning eyes. He was also their king, and it was he who led everyone to block countless pirate attacks. It was also he who led everyone to overthrow the once brutal ruler. Now they don't have the high taxes they had in the past. Although life is a little poorer, everyone lives happily. Chapter 50. The middle-aged king stood still and looked at everyone below. Everyone held their heads high wherever his eyes went. I believe you all know that the country is about to face an attack. The other party is a very powerful organization, so powerful that I have no confidence in it. May I ask if you are afraid? No, no, everyone spoke in unison, their voices like a bell, with determination in their eyes. The king nodded with satisfaction. He drew out his long sword and raised it above his head and shouted. In this case, let us face those who dare to invade together. Pick up the weapons in our hands and show our courage and determination to those enemies who dare to challenge us. Everyone became excited and raised their weapons and shouted. Kill them all. After the pre-war mobilization, the king began to command the army to deploy to the port. The enemy may attack at any time, and they don't have much time left. The king stopped the boy who was about to leave. Dean, where is Felix? I haven't seen him for a while. Dean didn't know how to answer. He couldn't tell his father that Felix was kidnapped after going out to sea. It wouldn't work, and it might make his father worried. He could only tell a half-truth. Father, Felix went out to sea. We talked on Den Den Mushi yesterday. He's probably still playing in Oiko now. The old king sighed helplessly. His youngest son often goes out to sea, and he's used to it. It's good that he's not here now. Okay, let's ignore Felix. Dean, take people to deploy the port first. Even if those people are there, we can't take it lightly. After all, the other side is the world-famous Germa 66. Okay, father. Dean responded and led people out of the square. After watching his son walk away, the old king suddenly became depressed. They thought that after overthrowing the cruel king, their family would be able to live a happy life. But when he became king, he found that the reality was completely opposite to his imagination. Now there are more and more things to consider every day, such as the future of the country, how the people can live better, and how to face the enemy. But he himself is not very strong. Even becoming a king was accomplished with the help of others. Slowly, the heavy responsibility of the country fell on his two sons. He also knew that Felix did not go to sea for fun. He saw that boy coming back with injuries many times. The country is too poor now, so poor that the king's son needs to go to sea to make money. The eldest son Dean's dream since childhood is to become an excellent boatman, hoping that one day he can drive his own boat to see a different world. The oppressed teenager always yearns for freedom. But now, in order to help his father, Dean never mentioned the matter of building a ship and going to sea. The heavy burden of the country weighs on him, making him feel very guilty as a father. I'm such a bad father. Enter the palace and come to a remote courtyard. You can hear the lively noise from outside the door. A woman with a very amazing figure sat on the wooden box with her legs crossed, biting a bone she had just eaten. She had a bright smile on her face. Looking at her face, she is the current captain of the Eastern Army of the Revolutionary Army. Ginny. A man wearing a black magic hat joked. Miss Ginny, you look very happy. Ah, you saw it. Ginny tilted her head with an embarrassed expression as if her little thoughts were seen through. I've been separated from Bear Cub for a long time. When I think about joining Bear Cub's team tomorrow, I can't help but feel excited. No one thought it was strange, so some people laughed. It was well known in the Revolutionary Army that Ginny liked Big Bear. Some young members of the Revolutionary Army covered their chests and made sad expressions. I really envy the captain of the Big Bear Army. He is loved by everyone's goddess. Ah, I am everyone's goddess. Ginny was surprised, and then she pouted with disgust. You little brats. So disgusting. Several people were shocked when they heard this, and they fell to the ground and pounded the floor. Miss Ginny, you are too much. This scene made everyone laugh again. Since they will meet with another army tomorrow, all the cadres and members of the East Army gathered together today. Discuss the next plan. Now the Kingdom of Corgi is already a base of the Revolutionary Army, and the next plan is to liberate more countries. The Revolutionary Army has already chosen the next target. Then it is the Kingdom of Bridges, Tequila Wolf. Also known as the Kingdom of Workers. This is a country built on a bridge, located southeast of the Kingdom of Korkia. Many years ago, the world government had a plan to connect all the islands in the East China Sea. The construction of this bridge began 700 years ago. Most of the people in the country are people from countries that refuse to join the world government and criminals transported from all over the world. There are dozens of non-member countries in the East China Sea alone. These countries are often in war, and the defeated countries have to hand over a large amount of money. Otherwise most of the citizens will be sold as slaves to the Kingdom of Bridges. The two armies of the Revolutionary Army gathered for this country this time, in order to rescue more civilians in distress. As long as this country continues to exist, it will be difficult for these non-member countries in the East China Sea to have a peaceful life. Not many people are born to like war. The purpose is to survive better. Many countries also want to change this situation. But the only way is to become a member of the world government, otherwise they will not be protected by the Navy. Other countries can also plunder resources and population at will. Even if they go out to sea, they will be directly identified as pirates, even if they have done nothing. But it is not so easy to become a member of the world government. The huge amount of Tianshengjian alone is not something that a small country can afford. There are almost 300 countries in the world, but only more than 100 have become members of the world government. Don't other countries want to be protected? No, except for some countries with their own strength, most of the others are weak countries. Even if all citizens are squeezed dry, it is not enough for a year's Tianshengjian, and Tianshengjian needs to be handed over every year. Before the Revolutionary Army came to the Kingdom of Corgi, many people in this country would also be sold to the Kingdom of Bridge by the king or pirates. Now it is considered to be getting better. At this time, the old king pushed the door and walked in, and everyone stopped laughing and looked at him. But they relaxed when they saw that it was an acquaintance. After all, their identities are sensitive, and they are usually cautious. The old king felt uncomfortable being looked at. Chapter 51. 5 years ago. He was not the king yet. He was just a rebel leader in this country. He dreamed of overthrowing the king's brutal rule one day and leading everyone to live a happy and free life. He would no longer be reduced to slavery because he could not pay high taxes. Because of this ideal, many oppressed civilians chose to follow him. Work hard for the ideal country. Unfortunately, the king was the king after all, enjoying the taxes of the whole country, and he could train a group of powerful troops with just some of them. The rebels were just ordinary people who gathered together for their ideals, without money or weapons. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Everyone in the rebels knew this, but they still chose to fight to the end without hesitation. At this time, a group of strangers helped them. They called themselves the Revolutionary Army. Both sides had a common dream: to liberate all oppressed civilians and overthrow the brutal rule. Thanks to the help of the Revolutionary Army, the rebels soon broke into the palace and personally executed the once high and mighty king. As the leader of the rebels, he naturally became the new king of this country. He did not forget his original intention, nor did he forget the group of people who helped this country. He was very grateful and respectful to this group of people. Hey, everyone, we have detected that Germa 66 has arrived in the sea area 10 kilometers away from the port. What should we do next? The old king's tone was worried. The enemy is almost at the doorstep. How can these people be so heartless? The other party is Germa 66, which is extremely famous in the whole world. It's okay. Ginny saw the worry in the old king's eyes, threw away the bone in her hand, and picked up another big bone meat. There was already a half-person high plate in front of her. After eating so much, her lower abdomen was still flat, which made people wonder if her stomach was a bottomless pit. With us here, you can rest assured, and our companions will arrive tomorrow. Germa 66 is good at dealing with ordinary people, but we don't take it seriously. Others also echoed. King, don't underestimate us. We said we would solve this trouble, and we won't break our promise. They can become cadres of the Revolutionary Army not only because of the justice in their hearts. They usually face many wars, big and small. The strength of Germa lies in those clone soldiers who are not afraid of life and death. They are still relatively lacking in high-end combat power. Seeing that everyone is very confident, the king can only believe them. The country is in the process of development and its strength is still too weak. He also hopes that the country that has just made peace will fall into the quagmire of war again. After eating the last piece of big bone meat, Ginny stood up and patted her belly with satisfaction, covering her head with the wide hood behind her. Guys, we have built a stronghold with great difficulty. We can't let these brutal guys destroy it. Let's defeat these hateful guys together. Okay, Miss Ginny. The other members of the Revolutionary Army also stood up, also using wide hoods to cover their bodies. The group picked up their weapons and headed straight for the port. It is not the time for the Revolutionary Army to be exposed. The identity of the Eastern Army Captain Ginny is even more special. Once exposed, it will bring great disaster to them and this country. At that time, they will no longer face tyranny and pirates everywhere, but the cleanup of the world government. The only way is to cover their faces and disguise themselves as soldiers of this country. The sea in the distance. Hundreds of snail ships are regularly distributed in a fan shape. The architectural style of the ship is also very special, like a small castle. All ships have several masts with flags on them. The background color is black, and there is a gray symbol of 66 on the dark blue cross pattern. Hundreds of ships surrounded the small island in the distance. On a snail ship, a strong man sat in a luxuriously decorated room. He was burly, nearly 3 meters tall, with blonde hair and a golden mask on his face. The word, 66, was printed on his clothes. There was a special symbol of Germa 66 on his waist. A white skull, with a left eye in the shape of 6, a right eye in the shape of 9, and a yellow lightning pattern running through the skull. This man was the king of the Germa kingdom and the head of the Vinsmoke family. Vinsmoke Judge. 3 little boys were sitting on a chair nearby. They were all Judge's sons, and all 3 had the iconic spiral eyebrows. The eldest son, Vinsmoke IG. The second son, Vinsmoke Niji. The fourth son, Vinsmoke Yongji. IG with red hair looked at Judge with a serious face. Father, where are Reiju and that guy? The other 2 children knew who the guy IG was talking about was, and he was their biological brother. Vinsmoke Sanji. Although they were brothers, they had always been disdainful of the so-called brother. From childhood to adulthood, Sanji seemed very different from them. He was also Judge's biological son. The 4 brothers had undergone bloodline factor transformation before they were born, but Sora opposed Judge's approach. She was the mother of the 4. She drank the drug that affected the bloodline factor, but it didn't work. In the end, only Sanji didn't have an extraordinary physique among the children born, and he also retained his emotions. A series of things made Sanji seem out of place in this family. He was often bullied by the 3 brothers. Judge didn't want to hear people mention his son. With that weak body, as a royal family, he would actually pity the servant. In his opinion, this son is the shame of the whole family. So much so that not long ago, the eldest daughter secretly helped Sanji escape from him without much thought. It's good that such a son escaped, so that the Vinsmoke family can also wash away this stain. Whatever he does, he is probably afraid of fleeing on the battlefield. Hearing this, the 3 brothers laughed at him. Haha, it's worthy of that guy. After all, that kid is so weak, he is probably afraid of dying on the battlefield. Judge didn't pay attention to the children, but kept paying attention to a Den Den Mushi on the table. The purpose of their trip was to destroy the kingdom of Corgi, of course not for resources or anything. The kingdom of Germa is also known as the kingdom of mercenaries, and often accepts some mercenary tasks from other forces. They can also get a lot of money from this. And this time they also received a task. But the person who issued the task is quite special. The people who contacted him were a group of people wearing masks and black suits. Judge had worked for the world government before and knew the identities of these people. The strongest intelligence agency of the world government. CP0. The mission was to destroy the kingdom of Korkia at all costs, including everyone in it. Chapter 52. Judge didn't understand what the world government was up to. But he couldn't refuse this mission, nor did he dare to refuse it. The kingdom of Germa looked very powerful, the overlord of the underground forces, and a killer organization that made countless people tremble with fear. But he knew that the world government was too lazy to care about all this. If it really took it seriously, the kingdom of Germa would have been destroyed long ago. Keeping them is just sometimes needed for them to do something shady. For example, this time. Destroying a country is obviously not suitable for the world government to do it personally. If any news gets out, the impact will be great. Therefore, Judge took most of the army of the Kingdom of Germa and spent 3 weeks crossing the Red Earth continent to the East China Sea. At this time, a soldier knocked on the door to report. Your Majesty, the target island has been reached ahead. Are we there? Judge put the barrel in his hand heavily on the table and stood up to stretch his body. Open fire immediately after arriving at the port. All soldiers should go out together. Make sure that there is no one alive on this island. Since the mission given to him by the world government is to destroy this island and everyone, he doesn't need to worry about anything. Anyway, it's just a small country. There are many countries destroyed by Germa, so this one won't be a big deal. The 3 brothers stood up and said in unison. Father, we are going to fight too. Facing the war, they didn't show any fear at all. There was excitement in their eyes, which was not the state that children should have. Judge was very satisfied with the performance of his 3 sons. This was also his pride, and it was worth his transformation in the past. If this goes on, the Vinsmoke family will surely become stronger here and reproduce the glory of the family in the past. After leaving the cabin, several people saw this small island not far away. Many people have gathered at the port, all holding various weapons. It seems that these people are well prepared, but it doesn't matter. Judge held a long spear and pointed it straight at the island. Go ahead, let them see the power of Germa. Okay, father. The 3 brothers rubbed their hands, looking eager to try. A pink-haired little girl sitting on the bow rail turned her head. Father, are we really going to attack this country? The little girl's eyes were red, and she looked like she had just cried. Judge looked at her indifferently. Reiju, don't forget your identity. I won't bother you about letting Sanji go. I hope you understand that you are the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, and the royal family should look like a royal family. Reiju said nothing more. She couldn't interfere with her father's decision. Although they were parents, in her opinion, they were more like tools to achieve their goals. Born in this family, some things were already destined. But you are different. Looking at the sea in the distance, Reiju smiled slightly. You are a child born with love from your mother. You are gentler than anyone else. The sea is so big, you will definitely meet someone who treats you equally gently, Sanji. Soon, hundreds of snail ships surrounded all the ports of the island. Both sides looked at each other. The old King Andra stood at the port holding a crossed sword, with thousands of soldiers standing behind him. The hooded revolutionary army was also mixed in the crowd. All the soldiers were ready, some were operating cannons, and some were holding guns and aiming at ships not far away. The old king wanted to say a few polite words to try to stop this battle. However, he was greeted by the attack of artillery shells. Countless artillery shells flew towards the port with a whistling sound like meteors, and many civilians and troops were hit by the incoming artillery shells before they could react. A series of loud noises suddenly broke out in the port, and flames were raging. Countless large pits were blown out of the port, and many buildings were reduced to dust at this moment. Countless Germa soldiers rushed to the port with weapons. The smoke and dust dissipated. The old king retreated a distance in a mess. Ahem, these guys. If Dean hadn't been standing by, he would have died on the spot. Father, you retreat first. These people obviously don't intend to negotiate. Let us take care of the next battle. Dean took the sledgehammer from his back and smashed it directly at the Germa soldiers who were rushing over. Since you are already the enemy, then you should be prepared to die. 1,000 times. Air cannon. These soldiers seemed to be fearless of life and death. Facing the incoming sledgehammer, they did not dodge or evade, but only focused on attacking the enemy in front of them. Boom. There was a loud noise, like the sound of an explosion in the air. Dozens of Germa soldiers who were coming were torn apart by a terrifying shock wave, into pieces. Like a hurricane blowing by. Many Germa soldiers were blown to the ground. The sea surface of the port also stirred up layers of ripples. Everyone fire. Dean immediately gave the order. Some of the thousands of soldiers in the rear were holding strange guns, and each bullet could blow a Germa soldier into pieces. Some controlled the cannons and put unknown iron cans into the barrels. Accompanied by the sound of the cannonballs, the unknown iron cans flew straight towards the crowd of Germa soldiers. Some snail ships closer to the port were also attacked. Boom boom boom. A loud noise came out. The small iron cans burst out with unbelievable power, and countless Germa soldiers were drowned in flames. At the same time, countless pieces of iron flew away. Several snail ships were also blown into pieces at this moment. No one on the Kojia side was surprised that these weapons could be in such a crisis. They all knew that Prince Dean was a legendary devil fruit user, but no one knew what his specific abilities were. They only knew that the weapons he made were all greatly enhanced, such as these guns and shells. The power was simply not comparable to ordinary weapons. The change in the battle situation was completely beyond Judge's expectations, and he stared at the weapons used by the opposite side. Each bullet could tear a Germa soldier to pieces, and that strange shell could actually destroy his snail ship. Weapons of this power should not exist in such a small place. Germa also carefully investigated this country before going out. A remote small country with a population of only 100,000. He thought that the army of Germa in a small country like this could be easily defeated. But now he found out that he was wrong. However, he did not feel sorry for the loss of the soldiers, but looked at the battlefield eagerly. These are some incredible weapons. It seems that we can have a good harvest this time. He was once a scientist and knew very well that if this kind of weapon was equipped to the soldiers of Germa, it would play a great role in the future battlefield. As for the young man holding a sledgehammer on the battlefield, Judge didn't care too much. His strength looked pretty good, but he had no physical skills. All his attacks were based on brute force and the weapons in his hands. Judge pointed at Dean on the battlefield and said to his 3 sons. Go and try that kid. Go, Germa 66. Ig, Niji, and Youngji stood at the bow of the ship, and smiled when they heard it. Each of them took out a tin can. The size of a can, the colors were red, blue, and green, which also corresponded to the hairstyles of the 3 people. A dazzling strong light flashed, and the clothes on the 3 boys changed drastically. The aura also became extremely terrifying. Ig jumped up and rushed towards Dean. Let me test this man's strength. Chapter 53. Dean, who was swinging a sledgehammer to fight, seemed a little overwhelmed at this time. His attack was indeed very powerful. Each attack could kill more than a dozen Germa soldiers, but his physical strength was limited after all. In the initial confrontation, Korkia had the upper hand, but as time went on, they gradually fell into decline. The Germa soldiers were like machines, charging and killing without fear of life and death. They rushed forward desperately under the firepower. The soldiers on Korkia's side were a little bit incomparable. After all, they were normal people. But they were also afraid of pain, and they would also be afraid when facing death. Dean was also impatient at this time. His power alone was limited after all. If this trend continued, it would be a matter of time for Korkia to be defeated. At this moment, a child's shout came. Spark spin. Dean's heart was alert. He rushed forward and moved away from the position where he had just stood. Looking back, he saw that the position he had just stood was now covered by a flame. When the fire faded, a 2-meter-wide pit appeared on the ground. A little boy with red hair stood on the edge of the pit, with hot flames burning on his feet. Dean's forehead was covered with cold sweat. If he had been a little slower, he would have been hit by a big pit like the ground. Fortunately, he dodged it subconsciously. Oh, you actually dodged it. Ig smiled and raised his right foot slightly. If you can dodge it once, I don't believe you can dodge it a second time. After saying that, his figure flashed and rushed straight towards Dean. What a terrible kid. Dean's expression became extremely solemn, and his right hand tightly grasped the sledgehammer. This is the first time he has seen such a strong child in so many years. He is just like a monster. Shouldn't he be playing at home and enjoying his childhood at this age? How could he appear on the battlefield? But now that they are on the battlefield and the 2 sides have become enemies, Dean will not be merciful. His eyes were fixed on the figure of the red-haired child, and a strong energy was also gathering on the hammer. Just when Ichi was 5 steps away from him, Dean's right hand muscles bulged instantly, and he swung the hammer and smashed it. The battlefield is not a place for a kid like you. The flow of energy can be clearly seen on the hammer, as if it tore the air, and a huge sound of breaking through the air sounded. Feel the terrifying aura emanating from the hammer. Ichi wisely did not choose to resist. Although he was arrogant, he was not a fool. He would not resist the attack that he was not sure of. He just shouted, "Human wall." As soon as the voice fell, Several Germa soldiers rushed to him and blocked the attacking hammer for him without dodging. Ichi felt that it was still a little unsafe, so he stepped on his feet and took the opportunity to dodge to the side. Bang! Boom! Boom! The hammer hit the Germa soldiers who formed the human wall solidly. It was as if a giant bomb exploded on the hammer. The Germa soldiers were torn to pieces in an instant. This was not over yet. A shock wave shot straight forward, leaving no one alive in the place it passed through, and even a wide gully was plowed out of the ground. Hiss! What a terrible attack! IG, who was hiding aside, looked excited, without any fear at all. Seeing that his attack was dodged, Dean sighed helplessly. It seems that I still can't use two heavy weapons when facing an opponent like you. He turned his right hand, swung the hammer and spun it around before throwing it at IG. Are you going to abandon your weapon? Haha, it seems that I overestimated you. IG smiled contemptuously. The enemy lost the hammer, and he was sure that he could easily kill the opponent. Perhaps it was because he was too young and had little experience, or perhaps it was because of the pride in the Vinsmoke family, and he had strong confidence in his own strength. After his calculation, the attack trajectory of the sledgehammer could not touch him at all. He tilted his head slightly to the left, with a confident smile on his lips. A warrior as powerful as you, I must defeat you. I want to be the strongest warrior in Germa. After saying that, his fists emitted blazing flames, and the red cloak behind him was also blown. He kicked his legs and shot towards Dean. He punched Dean. Spark double fist spin. Dean on the opposite side also laughed. Kid, I hope you will laugh so happily again later. He made a fist with his right hand and slowly opened it. Compress. Release. At this moment, the sledgehammer flying in the air suddenly expanded. The 1-meter-long sledgehammer suddenly expanded more than 10 times. Like a mountain, it smashed towards IG with unstoppable force. IG's pupils shrank. His smile froze on his face. His body instinctively dodged to the side, but he was still a little slow. The edge of the giant hammer hit his body directly. Then came a series of cracking sounds. Boom! With a loud bang, IG, who was just full of vigor, was like a kite with a broken string, and flew directly towards the snail boat that came from, brushing against the top of Judge's head. A large human-shaped hole also appeared on the stone castle. Niji and Yangji opened their mouths wide, staring blankly at the large human-shaped hole behind them. After a while, a disheveled figure was slowly helped out from inside, with blood on the corners of his mouth. His combat uniform was tattered, and his body was shaky. There were unnatural bends in various parts of his body. Cough cough cough. Reiju hurried forward to help him. This younger brother is usually not very likable, and he always likes to bully Sanji. But he was her brother after all, and as a sister, she couldn't pretend not to see it. IG slapped Reiju's hand away, his face full of exasperation. Don't worry about it, I must kill that guy. But, Reiju wanted to say something but was interrupted by IG. IG wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Judge. Father, I was careless just now, please give me another chance. Judge didn't look at him, but stared at the sledgehammer in Dean's hand on the battlefield. What kind of technological product is it? Or is it the power of the devil fruit? He is now more and more curious about this country. All kinds of weapons he has never seen, even Germa's combat uniform can't resist. He thinks that after the battle is over, he must study the weapons here carefully, and that little guy must not be let go. Reiju, IG, Youngji, Niji, you go together, catch that kid, remember not to kill him. Okay, father, I will never let you down. The three brothers answered in unison. IG's injuries had recovered a lot at this time, and there were many doctors on the ship. The body after the transformation was strong and had a strong self-healing ability, coupled with Germa's technology. As long as he didn't die, he could soon become full of energy after taking various medicines. Reiju looked at the father in front of her and felt a chill in her heart. Is this their father? He didn't even ask a question when his son was injured. What are these children in this man's eyes? Are they just tools to achieve his goals? Seeing that she didn't answer for a long time, Judge's indifferent eyes swept over Reju's body trembled and she hurriedly answered. I know, father. Judge nodded with satisfaction. Then go, don't let me down. He didn't choose to do it himself. This kind of battle is just suitable for a few people. What Germa needs is a strong warrior. He doesn't want to see that kind of cowardly child again. Chapter 54. On the battlefield, the giant hammer was like a hill, lying at the junction of the port and the town. After the previous attack, Dean was sweating a lot on his forehead and his breath became short. At this time, a soldier from Korkia came running. Your Highness Dean, we have detected ships in the south of the island. Judging from the flags, it should be His Highness Felix who has returned. Dean shook his head helplessly. Is Felix back? He knew his brother's character well, and he would come back no matter what if the country was in danger. He told him the news yesterday just to let him make his own choice as a member of this country. He has the right to know everything he is facing. But after all, he is his brother, and he also understands the other party's strength, which is not much different from ordinary soldiers. If he really faces these enemies in front of him, that guy probably won't be able to fight back at all. He said to the soldier who came to report the news. Order someone to help them get to the island from the side, and try to avoid the enemy. Okay, Your Highness Dean, the soldier immediately took the order and left. After he left, Dean pressed his hands down, and a strong wind burst out from the palm of his hand, pushing him to fly to the hammer. He twisted his arms, making a crackling sound. Are there 4 people coming together this time? Haha, I'm really looking forward to a hearty battle. I never had such an opportunity before. Dean seemed like a different person at this time. The previous gentleness disappeared, and there was fanaticism in his eyes. He raised his hand and grabbed a Germa soldier who attacked. Compress 100 times. In an instant, the captured Germa soldier disappeared, and a dark red ball appeared in Dean's empty hand. Reju, IG and the other 4 who had just arrived at the port were also surprised. What a weird ability. Is this the power of the devil fruit? It seems that he showed mercy to IG just now. Nietzsche's hands were sparking with electricity, and he looked at IG with a face full of gloating. Damn guy, he actually looked down on me like that. IG was very angry at this time. On the one hand, it was Nietzsche's ridicule, and on the other hand, he was looked down upon by the enemy. How could he stand such anger if he was proud? He took a step forward and rushed straight to Dean above. The other 3 followed closely. It's okay to say sarcastic words, but if they fail to complete the task assigned by their father, none of them can take responsibility. Reju reminded. Be careful of his ability, try not to touch his hands. We understand, you should worry more about yourself. IG responded unhappily. They are not fools. It's true that they are not afraid of death, but they will not deliberately go up to die. The 2 sides soon fought together. Dean seemed to be able to handle the battle with ease against IG alone, but now there were 4 of them together. Even though he was a devil fruit user, he couldn't resist. The main reason was that the attacks of these 4 children were extremely strange. Some of the attacks were accompanied by flames, and some were accompanied by lightning. Especially the pink-haired girl, whose attacks were accompanied by purple smoke. But the speed of several people was very fast, and it was difficult for Dean to attack them. As time went by, Dean suddenly felt dizzy and his body became weak. His face was unnaturally pale. He immediately realized that the purple smoke was highly poisonous. It seems that I still underestimated the power of Germa. It seems that there is a reason why it can be famous throughout the world. On the other side of the battlefield. After the Revolutionary Army took action, the Germa soldiers no longer had the overwhelming advantage before. Guinea's arms were wrapped with armed color, and she kept waving her fists, and each blow could knock a Germa soldier to the ground. To become the captain of the Eastern Army, it is not just the talent and intelligence that counts. How could there be no strength at all? She also noticed the battle situation on Dean's side. There was surprise in her eyes. Many people know that Dean is a devil fruit user. When the rebels broke through the palace, they found the devil fruit hidden in the secret room. It was originally obtained by the king before, and it was treasured in order to join the allied countries one day. But before he had time to find a way, the palace was breached, and the devil fruit was eaten by Dean by accident. Ginny also knew this. But Dean used to use his ability to make weapons and ships, etc. This is the first time he has shown his talent for fighting. This talented little guy can't die here. His figure flashed, and, shave, was activated instantly, and when he appeared again, he was already beside Dean. Little ghosts, it's not good for so many people to bully one person, so let me play with you, let's play. He kicked with his right foot. A huge slashing wave flew out instantly, and the 4 German men who were trying to capture Dean were hit before they could react. Feeling the power of this slashing wave, IG was full of disbelief. He felt a sharp pain in his internal organs. It was completely different from the injury he had just suffered. How is this possible? Who is this guy? Why is he stronger than the man with the hammer? And why is this attack more powerful than their combat uniforms? The situation of the other 3 people was not much better. At this moment, several people were full of doubts. Didn't my father say that this was just a small country with no reputation? Why would such a powerful person exist in such a place? In the German kingdom, they were the strongest warriors except for my father. Now they were knocked down so easily. A deep sense of frustration surrounded them. The 4 of them were just like IG before. They were blown away far away. 4 bloodlines passed through the air, and then there were 4 sounds of falling into the water. Ginny ignored them, pulled the brim of her hat, and picked up Dean who was lying on the ground. She threw the poisoned Dean to the back. Several members of the Revolutionary Army were also very considerate. They caught Dean and took him to a safe area. Judge on the snail boat held his spear with his eyes slightly narrowed. He had noticed these hooded people a long time ago. They were much stronger than other soldiers. Especially the leader. Not only did he master armament hockey, but he could also use the 6 styles. As the king of Germa, he had some insight. What is the 6 styles? It is a secret of the Navy and the world government. How did the man in front of him master it? And judging from the power, he had obviously mastered it very well. He knew that some people with extremely high talents could learn the 6 styles by themselves, but they were all monsters. And hockey. This kind of thing is not something that should be found in such a small place. Even on the Grand Line, there are not many people who master hockey. Judge's face turned ugly at this time. Many clone soldiers were lost, and even 4 children almost died. I knew the task given by the world government would not be so simple. With 2 feet on the ground, using the thrusters, Judge instantly arrived at the battlefield. At this point, he had to do it himself. If something unexpected happened during the mission, he would have a hard time explaining it to the world government. Chapter 55. Looking at the hooded figure in front of him, Judge clenched his spear. The tip of the spear flashed with a crackling electric current. What faction do you belong to, you guys who hide your head and show your tail? Why are you interfering in the affairs here? Ginny's chuckle came from under the hood. King of Germa, Vinsmoke Judge, haha. You didn't stay in the North Sea, but actually ran to the East Sea. It's really surprising. She was also very angry at this time. It was developing well, but these guys came to destroy it. After this country will definitely attract the attention of the world government. It will be too difficult for the Revolutionary Army to continue hiding here. Then they will have to retreat and change places. It's all the fault of those bastards in Germa. Ginny became more and more angry as she thought about it, and her temper was completely uncontrollable. She swung her fist covered with armed color and hit Judge. The seashore in the distance. A ship without sails broke through the huge waves and traveled at high speed, stirring up water splashes 4 or 5 meters high behind it. Leah stood on the observation deck, raised her hand to block the sunlight above her head, and looked into the distance. You can see an island smaller than Oiko, and many strange snail-shaped ships are docked at the port. Dense crowds of people are distributed everywhere. Fierce battles are breaking out between the two sides. The flames of the exploding shells can be seen from a distance. Xiaofei, the island in front should be the island where the kingdom of Korkia is located, right? Felix took out a telescope to look, and after repeatedly comparing it with the sea chart, he nodded with certainty. Yes, the island in front is it. Xiaofei, you are too bad. It takes so long to confirm it when you return to your own home. Leah pouted in disdain. Felix was speechless after being confronted. What can he say? The journey was originally planned to take a day, but it was almost over in just half a day. He also felt it was incredible, but he couldn't figure out what was going on. He just thought that he miscalculated the distance in a hurry. Kyle also came to the deck. He could vaguely see the dense snail ships in the distance. He was afraid that he would not catch up if he came too late, so he used his ability to tow the ship to increase the speed. After all, the army of Germa is a group of powerful clone warriors who have been trained since childhood, and there are also Germa's special combat uniforms. Besides, Judge's strength is not weak. It will probably take half a day to deal with a country like Corgi. If the speed is not faster, it is estimated that when Kyle and his team arrive, they will only be able to clean up the mess. But it seems that they came at the right time. The war should have just broken out not long ago. But as I watched, I felt something was wrong. Is Germa so weak? The two sides fought back and forth, just like the crushing situation he guessed. Could it be that there are some powerful people hidden in this country? At this time, a small boat on the sea was coming towards them at a high speed. It was flying the same flag as this ship. Leah pointed at the ship and asked, Xiaofei, is that a ship from your country? Felix looked carefully for a while and nodded. It should be. I think Brother Dean found out that we sent someone to pick him up. Not long after, the two ships approached. Several soldiers looked at them vigilantly with guns until they confirmed Felix's identity. Only then did they relax a lot. Mainly because Kyle and his friends had never seen them before and were afraid of any accidents. A soldier jumped over and saluted Felix respectfully. Your Highness Felix, there is a war in the kingdom now, and Your Highness Dean asked us to pick you up. Your Highness. Kyle and his friends looked at them in surprise. There was a question in his eyes. Xiaofei, why does he call you His Highness? Hearing this address, the soldier frowned. These people are so rude, why did they call their prince His Highness like this? If it weren't for the fact that they looked like friends of His Highness Felix, the soldier would probably get angry on the spot. Felix felt a little embarrassed when he met Kyle and the others' gazes, and scratched his head awkwardly. Ahem, I forgot to tell you, my father is the king of this country, and there's nothing wrong with them calling me His Highness. Right. Seeing this guy's evasive gaze, Kyle's face darkened. No wonder this guy rushed back to Korkia in such a hurry, the reason turned out to be here. Leah seemed to have met Felix for the first time. She kept looking around him. You don't look like one. How can a prince of a country go out to rob? Robbery. Chunye and the soldier were stunned. Especially the soldier. There was a hint of anger in his eyes. Who are these people to slander their prince like this? Your Highness. How could a prince do such a thing as robbery? This is simply a naked insult. Leah also noticed the soldier's cannibalistic eyes and curled her lips. It seems that you don't believe it, so I'll tell you. Then she told everything that happened on Maple Leaf Island. After listening, Chunye covered her mouth in surprise. She thought that this group of people were friends of Brother Kyle and his friends, but she didn't expect that they were captured robbers. This robber was a prince of a country. She felt like she was listening to a story. Sure enough, the sea is different. I encountered such an interesting thing just after going out to sea. The soldier who was angry before was also withered at this time, as if he had lost his dream. Looking at Felix, there was a pleading look in his eyes, hoping that the prince would expose the girl's lies. However, Felix said nothing. Kyle slapped him on the shoulder, and he grimaced in pain. Xiao Fei, I won't bother with your identity for now. Let's go to the island first. Kyle was surprised by Prince Felix's identity, but he didn't have any big ideas. Anyway, he didn't come here for him. No identity is important. Besides, it doesn't matter even if he is a prince of a country. There are so many royal families in this sea. Yes, I will listen to you, Lord Kyle. Felix felt ashamed at this time. He quickly ordered the soldier to drive the ship. Not long after, the two ships avoided the battlefield and landed on the island from a small port on the side. No matter how many people there are in Germa, they can't surround the entire island. There will always be places that they can't take care of. The soldier led everyone to a temporary rest camp behind the battlefield. It's called a camp, but it's actually a small town close to the port. Due to the war, the residents evacuated to the center of the island, so it became empty, and the injured soldiers would be sent here for treatment. Chunye held Leah's hand, her face pale. It was the first time she had seen such a scene. There were wounded soldiers everywhere, and many of them were missing arms and legs. Kyle and the other two were fine. After all, they had killed many pirates and were used to all kinds of bloody scenes. Kyle said at the right time. This is war, Chunye, you need to learn to adapt, and you will definitely experience many such scenes in the future. Chapter 56. I will try my best to adapt. Chunye patted his face and cheered himself up. Kyle didn't say much. People need a process of adaptation. You will get used to this kind of thing after seeing it more. At this time, Felix walked out of a house. He just went to understand the current war situation. The result was beyond his expectations. He had also seen the group of black-robed people who helped them overthrow the tyrant, but he didn't know their specific identities. They are usually very mysterious, and it is difficult for others to see them except his father. Felix didn't expect this group of people to be so powerful that they actually helped them defend the country. He also told Kyle what he knew. Mysterious man with a hood. Kyle rubbed his chin. Why does he give people a strong sense of familiarity? And he immediately became curious. Tell me about this group of people in detail. Felix didn't hide it and told everything he knew. Anyway, many people on the island know about this kind of thing. It's just that the specific identities of this group of people are not clear. Kyle held his forehead as he listened. He finally knew who this group of people were. They helped civilians overthrow the tyrant, and all they wanted afterwards was some food. They were very powerful, and they kept their faces covered. They must be the Revolutionary Army. Apart from them, Kyle had never heard of any organization willing to help civilians rebel for no reason. No wonder this small country could withstand the attack of Germa. The Revolutionary Army also had a certain strength at this point in time, even though they were chased around by the world government and the navy. That was because the strength of the two sides was huge. But if they faced a force like Germa, the Revolutionary Army would not be bad. Dragon was a vice admiral in the navy, and he was taught by Garp since he was a child. His strength must be strong, but it is hard to say how strong he is. But he must have mastered the 6 styles in hockey. And now he is the leader of the Revolutionary Army, for the overall strength of the Revolutionary Army. He couldn't hide it. Not to mention everyone, at least the cadres at this level will definitely teach the 6 styles in hockey. Since the Revolutionary Army is here, Kyle doesn't need to join in the fun. With them here, Germa 66 probably won't be able to break through Korkia. Unless it's necessary, he doesn't want to get involved in such trivial matters. If it weren't for meeting the powerful boatman mentioned by Felix, Kyle probably wouldn't bother to come. Take me to see your big brother, called Dean first. Hearing this, Felix took a few people into a small room. He didn't have time to see big brother Dean, but he heard that he was injured, and he didn't know the specific situation. Compared to other places, there are fewer people here. Inside the house, a man about 2 meters tall was lying on the bed, his eyes closed, his face black, and black blood spitting out from the corners of his mouth from time to time. It was obviously a symptom of poisoning and coma. Several doctors were busy. Several members of the Revolutionary Army who brought Dean back were also helping. Felix was shocked when he pushed the door open and saw this scene. He only knew that brother Dean was injured, but he didn't expect that he was injured so seriously. He quickly came to the bed and pushed away the doctors around him. He grabbed the man's arm on the bed and started shaking it. Brother Dean, I'm Felix, I'm back. However, there was no response. Felix yelled at the doctors around him again. Why are you still standing there? Don't you see that he is already injured? Why don't you treat him? All the doctors stood there in silence. Seeing that no one spoke, Felix was anxious. Why don't you speak? Answer me, what happened to brother Dean now? Only then did an elderly doctor come forward. He bent over and spoke in a heavy tone. I'm very sorry, Your Highness Felix. Your Highness Dean has been seriously poisoned, and we can't do anything about it. Why, aren't you the best doctors in this country? Felix screamed loudly. The old doctor lowered his head silently. I'm sorry, we are unworthy of the profession of doctor. We have never seen the poison that Your Highness Dean has been poisoned with, and we don't know how to treat it. Hearing this, Felix collapsed to the ground. No wonder those soldiers seemed very entangled when they asked about Dean's condition just now. At this moment, he felt that the sky of the whole world had collapsed. Even the best doctors in this country are helpless. Does that mean that brother Dean is no longer saved? He was unwilling to accept this fact. The emotions of several people in the Revolutionary Army were also very depressed. Miss Ginny actually saved the people because of poison to death. I don't know how to explain to Ginny then. They didn't expect that the poison given by the little girl in Germa 66 was so strong. They also went to find a doctor among their companions. The answer they got was still powerless. Kyle and the others at the door also saw this scene. Luli has also read a lot of medical books, and stepped forward to look at the man on the bed carefully. After a while, she shook her head helplessly. Chunye asked, Sister Luli, you can't do anything. Luli spread her hands. It's really a serious poison, I can't do anything. Most of her medical skills were learned from books, and she probably wasn't as good as the doctors around her. Even these people couldn't do anything, let alone her. What should I do? Leah looked at Kyle, wanting to see what he thought. Kyle spread his hands. Why are you looking at me? I'm not a doctor. Leah said, we came to Kojia for him. If he dies, it would be a waste of our trip. She didn't feel anything about the stranger's death, but she felt sorry for Kyle. That can't be helped. Who could have thought that this would happen? Kyle didn't want a great boatman to die before he even got to know him. Unfortunately, his own ability is limited. Suddenly, Kyle thought of something. He remembered that Sanji's sister Reiju seemed to be a poisoner. And Reiju is the princess of the Germa kingdom. I don't know if she came this time. Kyle asked the hooded Revolutionary Army standing nearby. Is there a pink-haired little girl among the invading enemies this time? At this time, the Revolutionary Army was looking at Kyle and his friends. The four of them gave them a sense of familiarity. Especially the girl with twin ponytails, who seemed to have seen her somewhere before. Hearing Kyle's question, one of them said, there is indeed a little pink girl among the invading enemies this time, and Dean was poisoned because of her. Do you know her? No, Kyle shook his head and pointed at Dean on the bed. But I know that little girl can cure his poison. Since it was Reiju who poisoned him, why not just capture her and help cure the poison? Kyle would not doubt whether Reiju had the ability to do so. Everyone looked over when they heard this. Chapter 57. Another member of the Revolutionary Army asked. How do you know that little girl can cure Dean's poison? Besides, the two sides are enemies, and Dean was poisoned because of her. How could the other party agree to cure the poison? Kyle said, since she was the one who poisoned, it is normal that she can cure the poison. Anyway, there is no other way now, and it won't hurt to try. The man from the Revolutionary Army wanted to say something but was interrupted by Felix. Lord Kyle, I believe you, I will go and catch that little girl. After saying that, he ran out of the door. Kyle grabbed him. Okay, you will die if you go. With your strength, you will be lucky to survive on the battlefield, let alone catch people. I'd better go. He also wanted to see how the battle between the Revolutionary Army and Germa went. This kind of thing should be solved. I remember that Korkia was destroyed in the original book, and it was obvious that the Revolutionary Army did not stop Germa. Felix burst into tears when he heard this. He also knew his own strength. Facing the brutal guise of Germa, he would definitely go without return. But for his elder brother, he was willing to give it a try no matter how dangerous it was. Unexpectedly, Lord Kyle was willing to help him at this time. He bowed 90 degrees to Kyle, tears and snot streaming. Thank you very much, Lord Kyle. As long as you are willing to help treat Brother Dean, I am willing to offer any conditions, even my position as a prince. Go away, who wants your position? Kyle's face was dark and he stepped back a few steps. He was afraid that this guy would rub his snot on him. Okay, I'm not helping for nothing. I do this with conditions. As for the conditions, let's wait until that guy wakes up. Felix understood that the reason why they came to Kogia was to let Brother Dean build a ship, which was considered a need. But this did not affect his gratitude to them. He whispered to a man at the door. Not long after, the soldier ran back. In his hands, he was holding 4 black robes with white hoods that he had found from nowhere. Felix raised his hands and handed over the black robes. Lord Kyle, I'm sorry to let you get involved in this matter. I hope this can reduce some trouble for you. Okay, Kyle took the black robe and put it on directly. It's best not to be exposed. We will see the situation at that time. If it doesn't work, there is still the skin of the golden lion. The 3 women also took the clothes and put them on. They also compared them with each other and seemed very happy. When the hood is put on, it gives people a sense of déjà vu of a mysterious force. Leah stretched out her hand to lower the brim of the hat and laughed at Kyle. Haha, kid, let's go to the battlefield quickly. There are still many people who need this captain to save. Kyle poked her forehead with a finger in annoyance. Be normal, or people will think you're a fool. HMPH, you're the fool, stupid Kyle. Poochie, Luli and Chunye both laughed. Leah, you don't look like a good person at all, just like a bad guy ready to do evil. Leah turned her head away unhappily, humming. HMPH. How can you look like a bad guy, sister? Don't you think this is cool? It's like a hero hiding in the dark to save the world. Not at all. Luli crossed her hands and denied it without giving face. Chunye also looked at this outfit curiously. Hee, if someone is not familiar with it, I guess they really won't recognize it. Kyle waved his hand to interrupt the discussion of the 3 women. Okay, let's go. There are still injured people waiting to be rescued. Don't let them die because of the delay. After saying that, he pushed the door and walked out. The 3 women hurriedly followed. Luli and Leah are both strong, so I don't have to worry about any danger on the battlefield. As for Chunye, with the 3 of them, safety can be guaranteed. That's why Kyle took the 3 of them with him, so that he could exercise when he encountered the enemy. The port where the 2 sides fought was on the east side of the island. It was also a distance away from here. In order to save time, Kyle took the 3 of them directly to the port. At the port. At this time, the battle between the 2 forces was nearing its end. Both the Korgia and Germa suffered heavy losses. especially the Korgia side. It was originally an army organized by the people, and no matter how combat-oriented or ruthless they were, they could not compare to the Germa army. This group of clone soldiers were not afraid of death at all, and they would insist on getting up and attacking no matter how badly they were injured. The soldiers on the Korgia side had never seen such a scene. Many people were terrified. Even the old king was panting at this time, covered in blood. Holding the cross swords were also covered with numerous gaps. The revolutionary army was not much better, and some of the weak ones who had just joined the army died in the battle. The battle could only last until now because of several powerful cadres. Guinea's previous attack did not kill the 4 siblings of Germa. After the doctor's temporary rescue, they are now back on the battlefield. Fortunately, there are several strong cadres in the revolutionary army. They can't deal with Judge, but they can deal with 4 children. After all, they are still young and lack combat experience. There are also 2 people fighting in the center of the battlefield. Ginny and Judge have been fighting for several hours, and there are big holes everywhere around. The strength of both sides is not much different. No one can do anything to anyone. Therefore, the 2 forces are in a delicate balance at this time. The victory or defeat depends entirely on the 2 leaders. Ginny punched Judge away, panting and cursing. "Damn, old man, you are quite strong. No wonder you can dominate the underground forces in the North Sea. But I don't understand, why are you so persistent in attacking Korgia?" Judge, who was knocked away, was not feeling well, with blood at the corners of his mouth and many damages on his combat uniform. The hand holding the spear was shaking a little. Ginny looked at him not far away with fear in her eyes. This person is not only proficient in the 6 styles and 2-color domineering, but also very powerful, and even his defense is terrifyingly strong. I really don't know why such a person would appear in the East China Sea, and he has never seen him before. How can I tell you such a thing? Isn't it more strange that there is a strong man like you in this small country than me? I also want to know which force you are from. It seems that I still have to knock you down, no matter what your purpose is. After a short rest, both sides recovered a lot of physical strength and continued to fight together. At this moment, 4 figures flew over the battlefield at high speed. Floating in the air, looking down at everything below. The people coming were Kyle and his 4 companions. Seeing their attire, Judge frowned immediately. "Are you from the same group? Haha, I didn't expect that there is another devil fruit user." Chapter 58. Ginny also looked up at the 4 people above, scratching her head in confusion. Who are these people? Judging from the direction they came from the center of the island, and with this outfit, are there any hidden strong men in the Revolutionary Army? Because of the sudden intrusion of Kyle and the other 4, both sides stopped fighting, with curiosity and scrutiny in their eyes. Kyle ignored them, but released his observation hockey to search the port carefully. Time waits for no one, and Dean can't wait too long. Soon he found the target this time. On the left side of the port, 4 children were fighting fiercely with a group of people from the Revolutionary Army. The small figure seemed out of place on the battlefield. Kyle landed immediately. "Luli, Leah, you 2 take Chunye to exercise, remember to be careful." "Don't worry, Chunye will be fine with me." Leah patted her chest to make a promise. Kyle nodded. With their strength, it is still easy to deal with ordinary Germa soldiers, and there is nothing to worry about. Brother Kyle, aren't you coming with us?" Chunye said with some worry. "These enemies around look so powerful. Are the 3 girls really okay?" After knowing a few people until now, she only knows that Kyle is very powerful. As for Luli and Leah, Chunye didn't have too much expectation. The main reason is that the 2 girls have never shown their strength. "It's okay." Leah picked up a long sword from the ground and waved it in her hand. "Chunye, just watch it. My sister and I have learned swordsmanship for several years, and we are very powerful." "Is that so?" Chunye looked at Luli again. Luli nodded affirmatively. We will live together on the ship for a long time in the future. This is a good opportunity for you to have an understanding of our strength. He also picked up a long sword from the ground and slowly raised it, and the armed color domineering covered it. The long sword was aimed at several Germa soldiers not far away and swung out instantly. The ordinary long sword suddenly shot out a silver-white slash wave. Several Germa soldiers were cut in half before they could react. Chunye was stunned, with stars in his eyes. Wow, Sister Luli is so powerful. Chunye, you know now, I said we are very powerful. Leah also swung out a slash wave. The power seemed to be stronger than Luli's. This scene caused Chunye to exclaim again. Kyle ignored them and walked directly to the battle point of a group of people. Seeing the person coming, Reiju and the other four retreated instantly. This person was obviously in the same group as the other side. Not long ago, he was caught off guard by the leader of the opposite side because of carelessness. If he hadn't been treated in time, he would have died long ago. Now seeing the four people who suddenly broke in, he had to be vigilant. A hooded man came forward and asked with a respectful tone. Sir, which team are you from? Obviously he thought Kyle was a fellow revolutionary and came to support him. And he looked like a capable person, at the very least he was a cadre. There were quite a few people in the Revolutionary Army, he was just a small team leader, there were many people he didn't know. Kyle didn't explain, pointing his finger at the pink little girl who was frowning not far away. Reiju. Dean was poisoned by this person, now I need to take her back to help detoxify. It's been so long, and the poison of that little guy Dean hasn't been cured yet. The big man was very surprised. It's been so long, the doctors in the organization are not bad. I didn't expect that even the poison of a little girl couldn't be cured. Kyle shook his head. The poison she used is very special, and ordinary people can't cure it, so she can only deal with it. She is an enemy, will she agree to treat Dean? The big man was a little worried. Germa is famous for not fearing death. It would be difficult for them to help Dean. Don't worry, I have my own way. Kyle waved his hand, and his figure flashed, and the next moment he appeared in front of Reiju. He raised his hand and grabbed her and lifted her up. Everything happened so fast that no one could react. There was a trace of surprise in Reiju's eyes when she was caught. This person is so scary. But she was not panicked, and a smile appeared on her lips. Anyone who underestimates Germa will pay a heavy price. What's the use of being fast? Such a close distance is a perfect opportunity to attack. A large amount of purple poisonous mist instantly emerged from his body. The three IG brothers also watched everything that happened here with interest. They knew Reiju's ability very well, and even they didn't dare to touch that kind of poison easily. All of them held arms were ready to appreciate the other party's miserable performance after being poisoned. However, the facts were beyond everyone's expectations. The poisonous fog only drifted 2 or 3 centimeters away from the body and stopped spreading, as if an invisible cage locked it tightly. How is this possible? Reiju looked at everything that happened in surprise. She had never seen such a situation before. What kind of power was it? Why could her poison only release this distance? She was very dissatisfied. She gritted her teeth and began to increase the release of her ability. More purple poisonous fog was released from the body. However, the result remained unchanged. The poisonous fog could only be released a few centimeters, and then it was completely blocked. After releasing too much poisonous fog, Reiju was like wearing a purple dress, covering her entire body. Seeing this, Reiju also gave up continuing to release the poisonous fog. The result was obvious. Her ability did not work at all. This was completely unreasonable. Then she looked at Kyle who was leading her, and her little face was no longer calm. The poison she was most proud of was completely useless. As for physical skills, she was not good at them. Looking at Kyle, panic appeared on her little face. You did this. How did you do it? Kyle raised his hand and knocked on Reiju's head. Little girl, your poison has no effect on me, so don't resist in vain. Reiju covered her head with a grin, her limbs swinging wildly. Let me go quickly, my father is the king of Germa, you are attacking the princess of a country, my father will not let you go. Oh, Kyle smiled and pinched her little face. Are you sure Judge has the ability to save you at this time? Reiju looked up. Her father and the hooded man had stopped fighting at this time. All looked over here. Judge's expression did not change at all, and his eyes were always on Kyle. Reiju also noticed this. Suddenly, she seemed to lose her energy and stopped struggling. Yes, her father had no ability to save her at this time, and he didn't look worried at all. Reiju turned around and said with some disappointment. Since you have caught me, I have nothing to say. You can kill me or cut me up as you like. I won't kill you. What do you want to do? Reiju suddenly felt something was wrong, and her eyes were filled with panic when she looked at Kyle. Is this guy a pervert? Chapter 59. Kyle slapped her to pieces. Don't think about useless things. I need you to save someone, the one you poisoned before. Ha ha. Reiju immediately showed a hint of sneer. Are you kidding me? Do you think I will save an enemy? Or do you think you can threaten me? Let me tell you, members of Germa are never afraid of death. After saying that, Reiju closed her eyes. She was already disappointed with her family, and her life now was more like a torment. If she died on the battlefield this time, it would not be a big deal, and it would be a relief. I thought that only those clone soldiers and your 3 brothers in Germa were not afraid of death. You can be so strong without finding feelings. Reiju closed her eyes and had no chance, but she was shocked in her heart. She didn't expect this man to know Germa so well. Seeing that she still didn't react, Kyle smiled evilly. It doesn't matter if you are not afraid of death, but I don't know if that little boy is afraid of death. Oh, remember that little boy has the same spiral eyebrows as you, and a head of golden hair. I think his name is Sanji. Hearing this, Reiju, who was silent, suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Kyle with murderous intent in her eyes. What do you mean? Vinsmoke Sanji. The 3rd son of Judge, but because the transformation was not successful, he has been weak since childhood, and his personality also disgusted Judge. Judge felt that having such a child was an insult to the family. Therefore, the family deliberately blocked the news. Basically, only Judge knew that Sanji had 4 children, and few people knew about the weak Sanji. Since Reiju's mother passed away, the person she cherished most in the whole family was only this younger brother. And now the person in front of her actually used her younger brother as a threat. Reiju just stared at Kyle. I don't understand where the other party got the news about Sanji. Kyle also looked at her. He was sure that Reiju would not refuse this condition. Although he did not know where Sanji was now, it did not affect his tricking the other party. What do you think? I am not threatening you. I am just curious whether the little guy can resist a beating. For a long time. Reiju sighed helplessly. I can agree to your condition, but you must also promise not to involve my brother in this. Sure enough, the only weakness of this woman is her brother. Kyle also made a promise readily and put her on the ground. It would not look good to lead her like this. Don't worry, as long as you cure Dean, I will definitely not go to find your brother. If it were not for saving people, Kyle would not do such a thing, threatening another child with a child. How embarrassing it would be to say it out. However, in Reiju's ears, the meaning of these words was different. This was more like a threat. If she did not cooperate obediently, the other party would go to trouble Sanji. I hope you can keep your promise. Reiju opened her mouth and sucked all the poisonous fog around her. After she was done, she stood quietly beside Kyle. Seeing this, Kyle did not delay and immediately took Reiju to the camp. However, at this time, the 3 IG brothers who had been left aside spoke up. Niji had the most violent personality. He raised his fist and rushed towards Kyle, and his fist was flashing with faint blue lightning. "You bastard, how much do you look down on people?" Kyle ignored them from the beginning, which made him feel extremely insulted. "They are powerful warriors of Germa." Seeing this, Ig and Yongji were not to be outdone, and they also used means to attack Kyle. They didn't care whether Reiju was caught, but the glory of Germa must not be insulted. "Oh, I almost forgot that there are you." Looking at the three brothers with shamat hairstyles rushing towards him, Kyle did not dodge and lightly snapped his fingers. Suddenly, the three brothers who were about to attack Kyle felt that they had lost control of their bodies, and their entire bodies fell directly to the ground. Even if they wanted to use their abilities, they could not do it at all. They could not move their entire bodies, even their eyes. The only thing they could control was their own thoughts. This scene shocked the people of the Revolutionary Army. No one knew better than them how difficult these three little guys were. It also shocked Reiju, who was following beside them. What kind of ability did she have to subdue the three people with just a wave of her hand? At this moment, she had completely lost hope in her heart. Kyle raised his hand and waved, and the three brothers flew in front of the big man of the Revolutionary Army. "You decide how to deal with it. I still have to take this little girl to detoxify." The big man quickly ordered several people to tie up the three Ig brothers, and then came to Kyle and bowed deeply. "Thank you for dealing with these people, otherwise we would probably lose a lot of companions." Kyle waved his hand nonchalantly and prepared to leave with Reiju. At this time, the big man called him again. "Sir, please wait a moment." Kyle stopped and looked at him in confusion. The big man said awkwardly, "Sir, how about I take this girl to help Dean? Can you help Miss Ginny? This may be a bit presumptuous, but she has been fighting with Vinsmoke Judge for a long time. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid something will happen." "Huh, is that person Ginny?" Kyle looked at the figure not far away in surprise. He originally thought that the Revolutionary Army here was just a small team. Unexpectedly, there was a big shot. He always thought that Ginny's strength was average, but he didn't expect that she could fight Judge for so long. As the king of Germa, Judge's strength is still good. With combat uniforms and various means, he should be able to match the strength of half of the 7 warlords. And Ginny can fight him, which means that their strength is about the same. But it's not strange. After all, he is the commander of the Eastern Army of the Revolutionary Army. If he doesn't have some strength, it's hard to justify it. It's just that I met Ginny here at this time. Kyle's brows also frowned. The time now is 1508 in the Haiyuan calendar. A big thing happened at this time. Ginny, the captain of the Eastern Army of the Revolutionary Army, was arrested by the Navy. Later, some very infuriating things happened. Hearing Kyle's surprised words, the big man was a little confused. Why was this adult who came to support really surprised when he heard Miss Ginny's name? Miss Ginny's identity was not deliberately hidden in the organization. "My lord, don't you know?" Suddenly the big man asked uncertainly. "That, my lord, you are not a member of the organization, right?" He felt that he was too careless. He hadn't even verified the identity, but he had already taken the other party as a member of the Revolutionary Army. If this led to the leakage of information about the Revolutionary Army, he would be in big trouble. Kyle didn't dwell on it too much after hearing this, and planned to ask after things here were dealt with. It made him feel uncomfortable for a long time when he watched this plot before. Now that he has come here, he can't let that happen again. "Hee, I'm not a member of your organization, but I just happen to know the prince of this country. As for your identity, don't worry, I have met your leader Drago several times, you can rest assured." Quote. The big man heaved a sigh of relief after hearing this. Sure enough, he was wrong. This person is not a member of the organization at all. It seems that I still have to verify the identity of people I don't know in the future. However, since this person knows their leader, he must also know the Revolutionary Army. And the other party obviously knew their identities a long time ago. Then he is not in trouble. He did not doubt the truth of Kyle's words. The other party has such strength and knows the name of the leader. Obviously, he is not an ordinary person. There is no need for such a person to lie to a small character like him. Chapter 60. The big man bowed and said, "Then sir, I will take this little girl to treat Dean, and I will leave this matter to you." "Okay." Kyle patted Reiju's shoulder. "Just follow him." Reiju tilted her head and snorted, and walked directly to the big man. Suddenly turned her head and said, "Please remember your promise." Kyle waved his hand impatiently. "I know, I'm not a big villain, there's no need to lie to you, a child." Seeing this, the big man of the Revolutionary Army took Reiju directly to the camp. The three IG brothers have been captured. Now, the remaining combat power of Germa is only some ordinary soldiers except King Judge. With Miss Ginny and this mysterious Sir. It's only a matter of time before Judge is defeated. Other ordinary Germa soldiers can be ignored. Korkia now gathers the strongest combat power of the entire Eastern Army. If these three children were not so difficult to deal with, the battle would have ended long ago. Not far away, Judge just watched the Revolutionary Army take away his 4 children quietly. He also wanted to save them. He would not feel bad even if Germa lost all its soldiers, because those soldiers were consumables. If they died, they could continue to be trained. But Reiju and the 3 brothers were not comparable to ordinary soldiers. This was the most perfect masterpiece of his life. The mission was important, but Germa's foundation could not be lost in vain. However, Judge still resisted the urge. Until now, he did not know the specific strength of these people who suddenly broke in. The Devil Fruit ability user could not only fly, but also directly suppress Reiju's poisonous fog. He acted very relaxed. Obviously he was very strong. Besides, the companions with him should not be underestimated. Being able to launch a flying slash, it is obvious that he has reached the level of a swordsman, and he has also mastered the color of armed. All these circumstances combined together also dispelled Judge's idea of rescuing Reiju and the others. Perhaps now is not the time to consider gains and losses. This group of people is so strong, and now he should consider whether he can retreat safely. Judge was very puzzled by these unknown strong men who appeared one after another. He almost suspected that the world government deliberately tricked him. In the East Sea, which is known as the weakest sea, he encountered so many strong men in a short time. This is obviously unreasonable. Judge frowned and retreated a distance. As long as the situation is not right, he will retreat immediately. What a bullshit mission, at most he will explain it to the world government later. In this case, the group of people in the world government probably can't say anything. He doesn't want to lose himself here. Germa can lose anyone, but not him. Seeing Judge's small action of retreating, Ginny clenched her fist and laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha, old man, are you going to retreat? I didn't expect that Germa, known as the most vicious organization in the world, would be afraid one day." She didn't care about the identities of Kyle and the others now. As long as they were not enemies, everything would be fine. The battle had lasted for so long and it should be over. If it was delayed too long, it would be bad if it attracted too much attention from the outside world. She shouted to Kyle not far away. "My friend, how about we join forces to deal with this old guy first?" "Okay," Kyle nodded in agreement. "You take the lead, and I will assist you on the side." "No problem." Ginny didn't have any objections. It's almost time to rest for so long. If it wasn't for the sake of avoiding accidents, she really wanted to have a good fight with the old guy Judge to decide the winner. Her fist was covered with black armed color domineering, and she rushed directly towards Judge. Suddenly she yelled at Kyle again. "My friend, remember not to kill him, just knock him down, this old guy Judge is still useful." Kyle agreed without thinking. Guess the Revolutionary Army probably has their eyes on Germa's technology. Unexpectedly, The Revolutionary Army failed to invite Vegapunk, and now they are targeting Germa. Judge is not a good person, and his current strength is just so-so. Most of his strength is based on technology. But because of this, most of the Revolutionary Army are ordinary people, and the time spent on training step by step is bound to be long. Vinsmoke Judge has worked with Vegapunk before. This also shows his ability. This is the kind of talent the Revolutionary Army needs. Seeing Ginny attacking, Judge knew it was too late to retreat. Now the only thing he can do is to repel this group of people. A loud shout. Powerful electric currents emerged from his fists and spears, and they directly engaged with Ginny, who was rushing towards him. At the same time, he was on guard against Kyle, who was not far away. When he didn't know the specific ability of the opponent, he didn't dare to be careless at all. Always be alert to the opponent's attack. Boom boom boom. The sound of explosions rang out in the field. Kyle also saw Ginny's strength, and the 6 styles and armed color were used to perfection. The strength and defense were also amazing. She relied entirely on her fists to deal with all kinds of attacks from Judge. If it weren't for the powerful technology of Germa, Judge would have been killed long ago. Kyle was amazed. He deserved to be the captain. None of the characters who came out of the Valley of God back then were simple characters. While watching the battle, he was also making comparisons in his mind. With his current strength, if he didn't use his ability, he would have a chance of winning against them. In terms of pure physical strength, Kyle is not bad, and maybe even stronger than Ginny. What is lacking is the strength and control of domineering. Kyle planned to ask the other party for advice after this matter was over. Since they were all acquaintances, they would not kill each other. This way, he could also take the opportunity to improve himself. The battle should be over now. In the field, the 2 sides fought for several rounds but still could not decide the winner. Ginny mobilized all her domineering aura and gathered it on her fist, ready to attack fiercely. Seeing this, Judge was not to be outdone. A large amount of golden current condensed on his fist and attacked Ginny. Just when the 2 fists were about to attack together, something unexpected happened. Judge suddenly found that his arm seemed to have lost control, and the fist in front of him turned uncontrollably. It hit him straight in the face. At this time, Ginny's fist also came close. The armed color domineering aura was released, and the shock wave condensed on the fist directly hit Judge. At this time, Judge had not figured out why his fist was out of control. Seeing the incoming attack, he subconsciously wanted to dodge. However, something even more terrifying happened. This time, it was not just his arms that lost control, but his entire body as well. He was like a puppet. He stood there waiting for the attack to come. Ginny also noticed the abnormality of Judge, but she didn't bother to worry about it. She would not miss such a good opportunity. 2 fists hit Judge's face at the same time, one for himself and one for his opponent. The terrifying energy exploded. The mask on his face was also shattered by the bombardment. Judge's physique was not very strong to begin with, and even with the blessing of the combat suit, it would not have much effect under this kind of attack. In addition, both of them used their strongest attacks this time. Several teeth flew far away, and large mouthfuls of blood spit out of his mouth. But fortunately, he survived.